Hey, good evening, Nigerians. Welcome to another Money Space with me, Kalu Aja. And happy birthday, Nigeria. You are 64 years old, and that's what I want to talk about today. Talk about the history of Nigeria from the economic angle. Has Nigeria achieved all that she wanted to achieve when she was created? How are the Nigerians in Nigeria doing? Do we feel that a country at 64 is a giant? Or were we ever a giant? And what's the future really? But this is not going to be a talk shop by Kalu. This is going to be more or less you guys. I want you guys to request and tell me what you think. Like three questions. Number one, what is the good in Nigeria? What has Nigeria done good for you for in 64 years? You might not be 64 yourself, but what has Nigeria done good for you? Number two, what has Nigeria done bad for you? And of course, number three, what's your prayer point? Like, what do you hope to see Nigeria be? The nation or the people, what do you want to see? A lot of change has happened, and I think my generation, the folks that were essentially for my years, I would say the last generation to enjoy this land of milk and honey that was Nigeria. And I'll give you details. But first of all, I think it's important to just describe Nigeria for you folks listening. What's the history of Nigeria? And I put that tweet up in case you want to follow. So the history of Nigeria starts from 1861. 1861. This is when the British government, under the British Navy, invaded and annexed Lagos in August the 6th, 1861. Just Lagos, not Nigeria, not southern Nigeria, not even Ikeja. Ikeja is it's an acronym of something. It's Lagos, the island that you see near the water. The Navy invaded Lagos because of slavery. That's a different topic. In 1861 August. Then Lagos was declared a colony of the British government. Key distinction here, guys. The colony of the British government in 1862. So Lagos was ruled by the British. Keep that in mind. Lagos was ruled by the British. And in the Lagos colony now established a protectorate over the lands in western Nigeria. So you had the British government through the Navy take over Lagos and establish a protectorate over the land in the western region. But in the south of Nigeria, in Calabar, going up the River Niger, you had British private companies that came to Nigeria and set up business in Nigeria. So it was the British, it was the French, it was the Germans, all operating out of that river Niger. And the British came together and formed a company, and that company was to then go to the British government and ask the British government to give them the power to collect taxes, to rule, and to do business. So the Royal Niger Company, the UAC of today, was given a contract by the British government to colonize Nigeria through the River Niger. So Lagos was colonized by the British government, but Nigeria as a whole was colonized by the private sector. You had the UAC, which was an agglomeration of companies, the Unilever. The UAC you see today, that was one company. The British companies came together, formed the company, and they were given the power to govern Nigeria. So when you go to certain states in Nigeria, like Niger State, where you have Lokoja, or you go to other parts like in the far north, you see what they call district officers. Those were UAC managers. When they got to a town and there was no Nigeria, the UAC manager became the governor of that place. The GRA you see today if you look at the GRA, that was owned by the UAC Property Development Company. That was where the governors, quote unquote, or the administrators who were employees of UAC state and governed Nigeria. So the south of Nigeria was then formed as the Southern Protectorate in 1900. It was administered by the Foreign Office, not the Colonial Office, but the Foreign Office. Because it was not the US, it was not the UK government. And of course, the Royal Niger Company ran until the French and the other companies complained that they cannot compete with the country that has got powers to govern and also powers to do business. The British government took away the powers to tax from the UAC and gave that power only to the government, in which case UAC then lost its powers to govern and became a private company alone. That's when you then had all those employees now become, should we say, employees of the colonial office. So the Lagos colony was then merged with the Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate in February 1906. This became known as the Colony and Protectorate of Southern Nigeria. And in 1914, the Northern Nigerian Protectorate, which was now the territories that were conquered by the UAC, the Nigerian Frontier Force, which was a private company, then merged with the Colony and Protectorate of Southern Nigeria to form the Colony and Protectorate of Nigeria. That's how Nigeria came to being, guys. We were a protectorate, we were a private SPV. Look at it that way. The British only took over Lagos, the territory of Echo. That's all they took over. The rest of Nigeria was bought by the British government from UAC. They literally gave UAC, I think it's about 400,000 pounds, was what they paid UAC to sell Nigeria back to the British government. And that's where we are, guys. We were an SPV. Does that matter? I don't know. I'm not sure of any other country in the British Empire that had the history and the background of Nigeria where we were bought and sold like an SPV. But it does give us an inkling, guys. So let's go to today. I pulled up again and I showed on my Twitter space the GDP per capita and the GDP annual change for Nigeria from 1960 till 2020. I believe this one stops in 2022. If you look at that chart, the richest Nigerians have ever been from 1960 is in 2014 when we had a GDP per capita of 3,201. So 3,201 was our maximum ceiling as a Nigerian people. That's the highest we've ever earned per people, per person. Not GDP now, per person, 3,200. The poorest we've been, it's difficult to count that, but look at it this way. Look at that chart I showed on my Twitter handle. From 1960 all the way to about, I would say about the 1980, our GDP per capita did not go above $1,000. So from 1960 to about the year 1980, we had a GDP per capita below 1,000. The exact figure is $880. But from 1981, we then crossed that $1,000 mark, and our GDP went up all the way to $2,000. This is when we had the oil boom, and Nigerians became very, very rich. If you want to use that as a marker, so we've gone up to $2,000, and then we crashed back to earth. We crashed back to earth in 1993 and in 1999 before the military handed over. So we came back to having a GDP per capita of about 494. You could argue that because we had reached 2000 GDP, then 1999 would qualify as the year that Nigerians were the poorest ever. Again, this chart ends in 2022. It does not take into account what's happening right now in 2024. If I had to give you my honest assessment, I would say because the GDP of Nigeria has collapsed totally. When I mean collapsed, we've gone from being the largest economy in Africa to being the number 4 in Africa. Because that has happened, I suspect that if you plotted a GDP per capita today, this would be the period that Nigerians have been the poorest ever. I wanted to stop there, guys. I want to stop there so that we could have a discussion around the three things Nigeria has done for you. I've given you guys the history of Nigeria. I've given you guys the economic picture right now. We were richest in 2014. We were poorest in, say, 1999. Let me give you my own top three that Nigeria has done for me that you guys can request for the mic or send a DM and I can read that. You know, like I said, I was the last generation to enjoy Nigeria. I went to university, and every year, my annual tuition to go to a federal university was 110 naira. So I paid for the 4 years in university about less than 500 naira for tuition. Clearly, that was a subsidy. Also, on accommodation, I paid 110 naira. So every year I pay 110 for accommodation, 110 for tuition in a federal university. Unbelievable. And it wasn't that the naira was strong or naira was weak. That was just the cost. That was just the cost. I was in university when we had the first ever ASU strike, and we lost a year. But that was the cost. And back then, people were complaining that things were hard. So I enjoyed that free education from Nigeria. That was one thing I think my generation were the last, for my generation, 5 years after me, 5 years before me, we enjoyed that. The people that came before me, even though got better, they were buying food with 50 kobo voucher. You tear a ticket, go to the canteen, and you're able to buy food and all that. I didn't enjoy that, but I got the free education from Nigeria, and that's one thing I enjoyed. What Nigeria has done bad in my and when I was growing up as a Nigerian, Nigeria was a nation that helped South Africa get out of apartheid. There was a particular instance, I think it was the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh, I think. I want to tell you how powerful Nigeria was. Two stories. Nigeria boycotted the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. Nigeria started it, and every nation that was not a quote unquote European nation did not attend that Commonwealth Games. Nigeria didn't go, India didn't go, no African country went. None. Because Nigeria stood up and said, we're not going to go for the Commonwealth Games when you are supporting South Africa. And because Nigeria did not go, every other nation had to back out. Also, when Angola was fighting a civil war, you had the UNITA, you had the MPLA. MPLA are the guys now ruling in Angola. UNITA was the rebel force that was supported by South Africa, the US, and the UK. Nigeria supported MPLA. So we went against the US, the UK, the Western world, and supported the Angolan nation come that ruling now. And they won. They won. Nigeria gave money. Cubans also came, and Nigerians won that civil war with the people of Angola, and the UNITA guys are no longer there. I'm not talking about who. I'm not interested in who won the war per se, but the influence Nigeria has got. That's what Nigeria was called the giant of Africa. Nigerian doctors, lawyers, military judges were sent to West African nations and to Caribbean nations to do what they call technical aid corps. So if you go to the Gambia, the Sierra Leone, Malawi, they were all Nigerian doctors there. If you go to Jamaica, to Haiti, to all those Caribbean nations, there were Nigerian doctors and lawyers and judges there. They literally ran those countries. Nigeria was the quote-unquote only African nation that had a surplus of trained English-speaking professionals. Only Nigeria. Only Nigeria. There was a case where the Kenyan beauty queen, I understand, she came to Nigeria, and from the pilot at Nigerian Airways to the doctors to the newscasters, everybody was Nigerian and black. She had never seen in her life before. She had never gone to an African country where everyone was not just black, but the guys that run the nation was black. You take it for granted till you leave Nigeria, you go to say Kenya or South Africa. I'm not saying it's wrong to have different races, but when you go to those countries, you see many folks that don't look like you running those nations that are judges and newscasters, but you come back to Nigeria, you take it for granted that everybody in your military, in your civil service is black and African. That was the power of Nigeria, and that's what we're called the giant of Africa. We've fallen from that, we've fallen from grace, but I still think Nigeria still has a more to give. So that's my story. And I'm going to bow out now and let you guys speak. Thanks for DMs. Let me read one that's I saw this one very, very interesting. 2014, just to be clear, are you saying that Nigerians earned more money because the minimum wage was lower in 2014? No. GDP per capita means that if you take the output that Nigeria created in 2014 and you divided it to all Nigerians, that was the year that more Nigerians got more, should we say, had the most share of the output from Nigeria. That's how you measure, should we say, wealth, GDP per capita. Olumide, Timothy, you first two guys. Olumide, what's on your mind? Is Nigeria still a giant? Where has Nigeria failed you? Where do you want to see Nigeria, everyone? Talk to me, Olumide.
Good evening, great space as usual, and well, it's been I don't know how to start, but it's been an unfortunate story looking at the historicals, Nigeria pretty much shouldn't be where it is. The country filled with bright-minded, intelligent, very young population can't make a revenue at par with even an S&P 500 company. A country where more than half of the population is struggling to meet basic requirements of life. A country where 1% of the richest people in that land believe in materialism, egoism, rather than productivity, scaling the middle class, and improving the lives of people. A country where cannot even boast of a functional military defense system that can deal with oil theft and other social economic problems that's facing our economic growth. So it's really been very sad. But Carl, you know, with all these issues we've been having, I think one of the bright spots is that I think what I've realized is that there are still people that gives me hope about Nigeria. And I'll start with the banking industry, for example. I think my exposure in the stock market has made me realize that there is still hope in spite of the darkness around our economy. If you look at certain businesses, you look at certain private sectors, you look at the fintech space, you look at the fintech
Good
space.
evening,
Young me, go ahead.
You look at the fintech space, you realize.
You go ahead.
Sorry, I think I have to mute your mic.
I've done that.
Okay. So if you look at the fintech space, the likes of Paystack, PiggyVest, they really put the country in good light. And interestingly, when I travel around in certain cities, one of the key exports has been the goodwill of these companies and the opportunity to grow. Nigerians have really been very entrepreneurial in that space. So, Kalu, just to summarize all I'm saying, I think the parabolic nature of the naira, the reckless level of fiscal responsibility, the fact that we think that we can use financial modeling and we can use textbook intelligence to replace discipline, the fact that the country is so divided that people judge you not by what you say but where you come from, the fact that people see our stock market as a Ponzi scheme because of weak compliance in our laws, and the fact that people are not protected, the lack of trust where a Southerner finds it difficult to own properties in certain parts of the country, in places in the north, the fact that infrastructure development has not integrated the regions of the country, it's really very terrible. So, Carl, you've done so many spaces, you've written so much tweet on it. There's nothing you've not discussed about Nigeria. But the reality is that at 64, we still act like infants. We're not even gotten to the teenage or the years of formation. So I think one of the things I can say from the positivity is that we are still together. I hope Nigeria, I still believe in Nigeria. I still believe things will change. I believe in the people. We have so many smart people in different tiers of systems, politically, socially, and economy. And also, like I said, our banking sector has shown that having competent and bright-minded people can really make a difference. In the manufacturing, in the cultural side, music, for example, interestingly, music has been a good export in the last 2 decades. But Carl, I think you did a wonderful space on how the West has been capturing that revenue. So Nigeria has not really been able to make so much from the likes of Davido, Wizkid, Bona, Shake, despite the fact that these are good exports. And I think it's really going to be very interesting for us to really start talking about how to integrate these exports. Finally, looking looking at the next 6 I think the president hasn't done a good job in managing his fiscal team. Carlo, it's been a year. The Naira I've never seen the Naira this parabolic ever. Despite the fact that the CBN had made Naira-denominated investments attractive, we've seen sporadic inflows into the country's coffers. People argue that our revenue has increased almost to $40 billion, but the reality is that most of these are causing from debts from multinational agencies, and the recent World Bank support over the past months has also elevated in those. So it's not really a material gain. Finally, I think we need to look inward and start talking constructively. Carlo, the space has become something else, particularly a space of conversation. Look at social media, look at the mainstream media. Economic conversations are now sidelined. Now it's all about skit making, it's about having fun, it's about sexual issues, it's about, and no country can build itself that way. Even the Americans, they give space for economic thinkers, they give space for the parameters to grow the economy. We can't grow our economy this way. So if conversations like that become the headline at Nigeria 64, what are we saying when Nigeria gets 200 years old? So
let me ask you, if Nigeria was a stock on an exchange, is Nigeria going to be a penny stock, an emerging stock, a blue chip? Is it going to be a blue chip that has fallen and is now a value stock that we can invest in? If you had to term Nigeria in that light, how would you classify the Nigerian stock?
Nigerian stock could be like Tingo, would have been delisted because the fact that honestly, because it cannot even be a penny stock. I'll tell you. You see, the parameters of having been listed on the market is that you meet certain requirements like compliance, earnings. We don't release results when due. Our laws are not compliant. You look at the management team, for example. You have one side, for example. If you look at the banks, for example, you cannot have a functional system when the treasury is not performing, the audit is performing, the loan section is not performing. It's scattered. Yes. So you can't even classify that.
Very siloed. Very siloed.
Exactly. So I think it's really been very, very tough for selling. It's really very tough for the media selling, like particularly people like us that feel that there's still light out of the tunnel. How do you tell foreign investors that a country of 200 million people cannot have an annual revenue of at least $50 billion a year? How do you explain that, Carlo? How do you explain to people that half of the population cannot cater for socio-economic needs? It's really
And when you say delisted, that was, I didn't expect that. I thought you would say maybe penny stock. But if you look at like you said, the criteria, Nigeria would have been a value stock, rising in the small cap, now in medium cap, approaching high cap, and then suddenly started to go down. Management was changed, and then the CFO ran off with the money. Then someone came in and sold the assets. And then the company was then operating by borrowing money to pay salaries, and then borrowing money to pay interest borrowed. And then the staff were now fighting themselves. Marketing was fighting sales. That sales is different from marketing. And that's really the story of Nigeria. This is a country that when the NASA sent rockets to the moon, Nigeria was one of the tracking stations. Nigeria was the nation that the kings of Saudi Arabia came to get treatment. The kings of Saudi Arabia. There is so much you can talk about Nigeria that it blows your mind. Nigeria was richer Nigeria and Nigerians were richer than the Chinese as at 1970. I mean, Google it. Google GDP of China, Google GDP of the Chinese. As at 1970, we were richer than them. Taiwan, Singapore were at the same level. So, what literally happened to this nation? That Nigeria went from a nation that the Chinese came to Nigeria to look at the overhead bridges in Lagos. True story. The Chinese government sent engineers to Lagos. I'm quoting, there's a guy called James Wood. He's a chairman of the Nigerian China as a Chamber of Commerce, and he was giving the story how when they came to Nigeria, Nigerians had cars. In China, they had bicycles. They had no televisions. Nigerians had TVs and fridge. They didn't have it in China. And they couldn't travel up to the west because they were communists. So they came to Nigeria to look at the overhead. That was a wonder. Nigeria had overhead bridges in the 1970s. When did America get overhead bridges? We take it for granted. We had first tax in 7. We blew all that. But it's interesting, Olumide. It's interesting. Delisted. Interesting. Timothy, what's your take? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Olumide, you want to say something about bringing Timothy? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, to be honest with you,
Timothy, hold on just a bit. I apologize. Just a bit. Olumide, go ahead.
If you look at when we were born, for example, the things that look like what's the elite, because the fact that I wasn't even born in the country wasn't a big deal at that time, because the average middle class could afford decent things. It was not a sachet-based economy. Going to London was not a big deal. Getting a visa, despite the fact that my parents worked and lived mostly abroad, they were not at the upper class. So if you look at the way things have integrated, I think one of the serious issues we have is political and cultural. The way corruption, materialism, and non-economic issues have been inoculated in our system is taking us back to the levels where Somalia is going. And people are looking at it from the part that, Nigeria has oil, Nigeria. We are already finished culturally. You can look at what we talk about, look at what we spend money on, look at what we invest money on, even among the elite. If you look at the Americans, I was telling my friends, there's still this ideology campaign. There's still this business intention. There's still this investment intention. In Nigeria, it's not there. What is the elite thinking of? Private jets, crypto bodies, meme coins, buy properties. These are things. These are things that you hear in the times of the Bible. What nations are thinking about is defense systems, artificial intelligence investment, building pathways to boost level of economic development. So we're not having these discussions. So how do you look at that projection? And the people that even try to hedge by staying abroad, it takes you at least 60, 70 years for you to even be part of the system. If you look at the richest people in the world, even the second generation, it took them a lot of, and you have to, it takes a lot to break into circles. Whether you work in Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, breaking into circles as a black immigrant is not so easy. So I think we need to look at things inwardly and face the honest truth that we are deceiving ourselves, whether being elite, middle class, low class. We are saying things that babies in global finance are not discussing about. We really need to talk about how to take the poverty endemic poverty rate to a level that can boost economic growth. Until then, I think we are joking.
All right, Olumide, thank you for that. Let me get Timothy. Olumide's team will have to really take, Olumide, Jesus, I cannot say. Delisted, Nigeria will be delisted if it was a stock. Timothy, what's your take? Timothy, how old are you? Don't give me the exact age, but are you a younger Nigerian? Are you an older Nigerian? What's your take, Timothy?
Well, I'm still laughing, Carlo, that delisted.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going back to delisted.
I'm traumatized.
I am 40 years old. Yes, me too. I'm 40 years old. 80s. I was born in the 80s, so I don't know where you place me. Maybe the economy may have made me to the 70s. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. So what's your take on Nigeria? I mean, like we asked three specific questions. What has Nigeria done good for you? What has Nigeria done bad for you? And what do you want to see Nigeria do for in the future?
Okay, so let me start with the good. The good is that despite all these challenges, Nigeria are resilient. We are still moving. Things are still going. And we are very much hopeful that things will be better. That's the positive part of it. And I'm glad that you're just sharing that in 70s, countries like China don't even, have to come to Nigeria to look for some certain things that, probably they don't have as of that time. So to me, is there's good, and the good aspect of it is we are still growing stronger, stronger, and stronger. What is the bad? You see, Carlo, the bigger problem is that, Nigeria as a country are not paying attention into the economic situation in general. For instance, you will see that so many things are happening and nobody is paying attention on actually making them right. But rather everybody is having an escape route to get out of the situation and just put itself in a position that will be very much more better for him or for her. But the direction I'm looking at is not this. I'm looking at statistic, for example. If you look at our population, maybe by 2024, as of any this year, we are somewhere around 200 million. If you check carefully, you will see that 50% to 55% are youths. And if you check carefully, you will see even less than 15 years are the ones taking majority of the population size. So the issue is that as this age continue growing and their eyes keep on seeing what is happening, injustice played out and everything that is ongoing, they will definitely are going to react. So it's not about where we are now, it's about where are we going to go, because you see the system keep on recycling itself, and you see even people keep on graduating from school and then with no jobs. And then also more population keep on growing both in the north, in the south, and in every aspect of the country. Time will come that the age brackets that we have already might not be able to manage the economy from the situation or directions they have been doing currently, because everybody's eyes is opening now. In the past, you can see that a senator will sit in the National Assembly or House of Representatives or legislature to make law on behalf of the country. Some, I will assure you that, how they formulate those policies, they don't even do research on whether it's people friendly or not. But as time is coming in now, even as they make policy, you see already people will start criticizing and start putting it at the age bracket of technology that is on the very high speed as it is going now. So my submission about the good is that there are a possibility that in the next 10, 15 years, nobody will sit down and be seeing someone in his 80s, 70s, or 90s, for example, to emerge the president of the country or senator, and then even listening to him. You will see that people will start taking positions that will definitely are going to displace
Timothy, if I understand you are feeling that the going forward, the population of Nigeria, which is more of the youth, cannot sustain the wealth generation in the country to be able to, so should we say, feed the nation. Is that where you're going to with this?
Exactly. That's where I'm going to.
Do you see any hope?
Again,
Do you see any hope in the country? I mean, look, take a 5 year period. Do you think Nigeria's going to get better in 5 years? Are you hopeful? Are you what are you?
well, to be honest with you, in 5 years, I don't see certainty of any changes because if you look at it closely now, you will see that the bourgeoisies are already planning how the 2027 election is going to unfold into the directions of allowing the aged people making decisions for the youth age that are almost half population of the country. So you could see that whatever that going to happen in the next 5 years will not still favor the youth. But I'm hopeful that in the next 10 years, if you come to me now as a senator of my constituency and you begin to talk to me in the directions that is not aligning with current global trend, I will just tell you maybe this cannot work now. In the past, because I'm from North, in the past, whatever an elderly person said, you just say yes, no problem, because it's an elderly. But I assure you now that because the circumstances has gone out of hand, so even if the elderly is talking, I'll begin to search and say, well, this is not aligning with what is happening currently, so he's outdated. But let me just listen to him, but I won't do what he was talking about. So to me, is that in the 5 years, we'll still go back to this situation, but in the next 10, 15 years, everything will change. And I will tell you why.
Timothy, we've got to rotate the room. We've got to rotate the room. I think you've made a good point, but we've got to rotate the room if you don't mind, Timothy, yeah? So I can get others to speak in. I get your point. Want to make that land. Let me get Philip here. I got F. Philip. Philip, what's your mind? What's your take on Nigeria? Philip. Has Nigeria achieved all you think Nigeria should achieve for you? What do you want to see happen? Give me your take, Philip.
Right. Thank you very much, Kalu Aja. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for giving me the opportunity to have my opinion on this subject. Right. Number one, the good. I'll start from, by saying the good part of what Nigeria has achieved in its history. You did talk about Nigeria's position and what Nigeria has done within Africa and for itself in the past, in the 70s and the 80s. You've captured that succinctly. And that's a good part of Nigeria, to be honest. And then, just to cast your mind back, just to remind everyone that in 1982 or 1985, what was the exchange rate for a dollar to a naira and a pound to a naira? I think the information is there. That's just a simple way of just looking at Nigeria at the time to look at how much the exchange rate was. I think in 1982, maybe it was less than a dollar was less than a naira, and a pound was maybe about 1 naira 50 kobo or so to a pound. So that's how Nigeria was then. So part of the good thing, I think, after independence, I think Nigeria, historically, did some good things about, when they had the regional governments, cocoa in the western region, the granite in the north, and then there were, and I think up till now, I can say that there are marginal gains. Nigeria has made marginal gains in terms of infrastructure. The British didn't leave any infrastructure for Nigeria. They did not build. They built nothing. All the roads you see in Nigeria were built, I think, post-independent.
Philip. The British built the ports in Lagos. The Lagos port was built by the British. The railways, all the railways we have today in Nigeria, all of them, apart from the standard gauge from Abuja to Kaduna and the standard gauge from Itakbe, the one in the middle, Itakbe to Warri, were all built by the British. What you see today is Nigeria upgrading those standard narrow gauge to standard gauge. So the British built from Lagos to Kano, then to Kano Moda. Nigeria is now doing standard gauge from Lagos to Ibadan. Please go ahead, sir. I just want to make sure. I get the point you're making, but the British literally per capita did more infrastructure in Nigeria than the Nigerians. But please go ahead, sir.
Right, so per capita in terms of population at the time, is that what you mean?
Per revenue end in Nigeria. They built the railways. The railways we have today were built by the British. All the railways, apart from the standard gauge from Lagos to Ibadan, standard gauge, the narrow gauge existing, was built by the British. Itakwe to Warri was built by Nigerians. Abuja, Kaduna, built by Nigerians. But any railway you see in Nigeria today was built 19 something by the British.
How many were they? We just have few of them. And what about the roads?
But we haven't built any. We haven't built any. Nigerians have not. There's no railway going west to east in Nigeria. None. Remember the port in Lagos. Nigerians have built 3 ports in Lagos. So the British built the port. Then we built Tinkan. We built Apapa. But the first port, Lagos, we see today, they sandfilled it and built a port to bring it to. Before, the capital was in Calabar. Remember. So I'm just making that point. I want you to go ahead. I don't want you to focus on this. They did.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Thank you for that. However, I just want to point out my main point is, when we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's good to talk about not just to focus on the bad and what we hope for. There are marginal gains. There are marginal gains in terms of infrastructure. We've done. The military era, they did some roads, that's all about it. And then develop some towns, some cities, build them up a little bit, and that's all about it. Even in the 1980s, as you may be aware, there were pipe-borne waters in some parts of Nigeria where you can open tap in your houses, in your homes, and you have, pipe-borne water running, and the water corporations were working as they should in some parts of Nigeria, not in every part of Nigeria. So we were making progress. So it's good to acknowledge those progress at that time. But what happened? And that is where the bad comes in. The bad comes in because all of those, little progress and marginal gains that we started making were then, stopped because of bad politics. And this is where the bad comes in. And so the bad side is really about building a nation. And it's a collective. And I am part of it. And we are all part of it. We've not sat down to really ask ourselves, what kind of nation do we want to build? Or do we want to live in? Nations are built and are built purposefully by thinkers, by people. But what we have done in Nigeria, especially men, I have said it, that men build their societies. Men are the leaders. They are the ones at the forefront of leading and championing and building societies. I kept saying this, that Nigerian men, collectively, all of us, we have not built our nation. We haven't. And this is where this is the bad side of it. We've not collectively come together. We talked about intelligence. We talked about being brilliant. We talked about being a giant. How come that intelligent people have not successfully built a nation? We excel everywhere in the world we go, in America, everywhere. Nigerians are brilliant individually. But people that are intelligent use their intelligence to solve problems. They come together to solve problems. How come 200 and something million people, we can't find men who are selfless, who can come together and do something and build a nation?
But Philip, I agree with you on that point that there's some personal responsibility there. But what would you really say to the Nigerian today that Nigeria has gotten in my lifetime 3 oil boom. So we've gotten the first oil boom when we had the Israeli war in 1973. We got the Gulf War boom We even got the boom of recent when we had the 2005 and all that. What have we done with those oil booms? Do you think we've done enough with that oil boom? Is it a personal responsibility? Should we blame the government? Should we blame the citizens? Just in one sentence, who do you blame for where we are today? Who do you blame for not having a road in front of my house? My house is run by the local government, not the state or the federal. Who do I blame for not having a good road in front of my house?
Blame the collective. Because there's no government anywhere. Government is not an abstract. We're all involved. Because what are we doing? Everyone is looking at individual solutions to collective societal problems. As long as I am fine, Kalu can go to places. It doesn't matter. If I have a house, does it make sense that somebody build a very big mansion and then you have to, I have policeman, I have security in my gate. If no matter what happens to Kalu in his house, I don't care. He can be robbed, anything can happen to him. That's fine as long as I'm okay. So it's a collective. We talk about Nigeria as if government is an abstract. It's a reflection. People in power are a reflection of their society. They're not aliens. From time to time, what I've seen over time, you see people criticizing today, talking about government, but give them an opportunity to go in there. They'll do exactly the same thing like people who are their predecessors.
All right.
This has been the story of Nigeria.
Philip, I hear you completely, but I think you made your point. Completely, I hear you. Completely agree. It's an open forum. Let me cycle some folks in here. Let me get Nick. Hey, Philip, thanks.
Can I just say the hopeful, Kalu?
Yeah.
The hopeful part of it is that I'm beginning to see that Nigerians are beginning to gain a better and a deeper understanding. And I'm beginning to see individuals are coming up right now and are engaging, and I can see that group of people who are called to save Nigeria will soon rise up and save the country.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. I appreciate that. So go ahead, sir. Yeah. Philip, thank you. Yeah, Nick, you got the floor.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, how's everyone's day going? I hope everyone is having a great Sunday. Great conversation. It looks like you kind of hit my article on the head. I just actually edited now as I go. What's the good and the bad? Is there any good? Okay. So, Nigeria is 64 years old. Currently, it has dropped from the first economy to the fourth in the country. Extreme poverty is 70 million people. Keep that in mind. I'm not talking about poverty. I'm talking about extreme. So we're talking about extreme poverty in the country. It grew from 46 million in 2016 to 2024, sitting at 70 million. This is extreme people that are in extreme poverty. People that are living at $1.25 is a day or less. So it has ballooned to 70 million people. You have a population of 225. Actually, I think actual numbers probably about 250. Give and take 235, 250 million people. The country is chaotically governed. Every single institution in the country is problematic. It's almost to the highest bidder. It swings depending on who's in power. The political party that members are controlling them is sent to serve a ruling party and their cronies. Corruption is an absolute high. I don't see, again, on every single metric, Nigeria has regressed a lot, right? It's borrowing a lot of money, but spending it on nothing, not just themselves. Country is borrowing. You're borrowing a majority of your budget, your national budget. You're borrowing a lot of it, and you use half of the majority of it to finance to service the loan you already borrowed. Squander half of it, then you go borrow again. In 2 years or in 2030, Nigeria will actually be borrowing its entire budget. Like every money spent will be borrowed, and half of the borrowing will be half of the money borrowed, or 65% of them, 50 to 65% of them will go to servicing the loan he already has, and the rest will go to will be allocated for healthcare, things they have to do. And again, it will not be used for that. They'll squander that and they'll go borrow money. So I don't see any good news. But I hope, again, like I have to keep it as honest as it is. There are There's no way in hell on every metric, and I think this is why Nigerian politicians, they know this is wicked. This is why they don't reference data. They never reference anything. They just give you, we're working on something. We're doing this. They never give you points. They never give you like an algorithm of what they worked out to actually tell you what they are doing in terms of policy. There's nothing as urgent policy in place to kind of deal with the country's urgent problem. The most needed institutional reform, everyone just sweeps it over, whether in the executive branch, the legislature, and the judiciary, everyone sweeps this over. And this is actually the keg that Nigeria is standing on. It's like a pony train that's on threads, right? You're just looking for each ditch to just go in and explode. That's pretty much what the country is in a nutshell. I think silver lining. Maybe with the growth of social media, that this kind of chaos is playing out in real time. Because back in the days, you used to wait for reports to actually tell you how Nigeria is doing. But again, we get to see not just the numbers, but we get to see it play out in real life. The chaos in governance is like plays out on social media in real time. You cannot make this up. A guy is on vacation, spending money on refurbishing homes, but the more critical infrastructure you haven't addressed. Nigeria as a whole does not have a socioeconomic plan to account what it will be for in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You can't have it. You can't go to any website of a ministry and pull this information. You can't have anything. So I do not see, at the current state right now, I do not see a pathway forward, to be honest, and this is a fact. There has to be a massive change. I'm talking about a significant change that forces a lot of people that are ruining this country to be held to account. If you do not have that, there is no pathway forward for this country. I'm not seeing any.
All right.
Because you have to figure out. Let me calm down, and I'll let this one. I'll wait for Rebecca to leave. And you have to see that the world has changed a lot. There's more powers. Even most regions, it's so funny. The Indonesians, the Malaysians, Nigeria. They won't even be able to compete with Nigeria. If you pull the data from 75 to 85 and pull those countries, they won't even measure. But now, even people like Nigeria cannot catch up to Indonesia and actually be able to compete. That's a lie. The numbers are here now. I'm ready to, like I said, I'm ready for today. I'm running on this so we could debate it till the moves come home. So there's a lot that's changed. We live in what they call a G0 world, where every country obviously has structural problems, even the top ones. But where is this region? Where is Africa? What is its role in the 21st century moving forward? It's still very uncertain because almost all the countries are extremely mismanaged and chaotic. I don't see any pathway forward except there's a massive overhaul in institutional reform. And I don't see how people that ruined the country will subject to themselves for that. Knowing again,
All right, Nick, I hear you. I think I get your point. I'm not cutting you off, but we're going to let others speak. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued that you see no future. And I'm not holding it. I'm not holding against you. I'm not judging you. I'm just repeating what you're saying.
Massive shift, not just it has to take a massive fundamental shift. Almost you gotta put it more layman's term. You have to be able to push these people all out.
Gotcha.
They have to leave office, and people that really want to govern step in, because it looks to me that people that are running for office in this country either do not know what to do or have no intentions of governing this country, which it desperately needs. That's what I'm done.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you saying that. I was going to ask you basically how your age bracket, not to give me exact, but just the age bracket, but fine, fantastic. Let's get Basil. Basil, how you doing? Basil, hop right in there. Nick says no. How you doing, Basil? What's up?
Great to talk to you after a long time. How's it going?
I'm very, very well, Basil. Thank you so much, yeah.
Are you back in Nigeria?
Basil, what's your take? Go ahead.
My take is, it's very layered, and my layering is based on my historical grasp, my grasp of Nigeria's economic history. At least mine will go back to as far as 1888, when the Niger Committee met and basically started to work on framing Nigeria. And my understanding of that framing, and I've written a lot about it actually, if I'm not mistaken. I've also had social audio sessions where I explained that particular document, that Niger Committee report, and what it entailed, the kind of people that were there, they're thinking about Nigeria. it's your classic colonial project where extraction had to happen. And when I heard the other person who was speaking about the Brits not putting in infrastructure, I was laughing because that's absolutely not true. Over 80% of the rail infrastructure that we have were built by the Brits, largely because of this extraction. As you know, of course, the logic behind the Port Harcourt Railway, for instance, as well as the building at the port in Port Harcourt, was to convey the coal deposits from Enugu. And as we know, coal deposits from Enugu were pivotal in winning the World War II. A lot of people don't know that. The tin deposits in Jos were also, I wouldn't really overrate the role of Nigerian resources, but they played a role, and they're mentioned in a lot of textual history sources. No doubt about that. But my explanation for the extractive modes of which infrastructure was built, of which government was built, we have to go back in history to be able to see a lot of that. If I explain, and most development scholars that are conversant in Nigeria, if you explain to them what Nigeria is, or if you ask them to explain to them what the Nigerian state of economy is, they will tell you it's largely an economy that is, hinged by extractive institutions. The political institutions are very extractive. For those who are wondering why I'm harping on the word extractive, if you read works by, if I'm not mistaken, Darren Achimoglu talks a lot about how extractive or inclusive institutions can determine the types of economy that, of course, a country is going to bear. And that, of course, generates the kind of outcomes you have. So if you have negative outcomes like that of ours, it's naturally because the political institutions are extractive, and that builds into the economic structure of the countries. And so back to my historical anecdote here. If you look at Nigeria right from the 1910s and the 1920s up to 1960, the Brits were already strong with, and of course this was framed by a lot of the work that George Modi did during the early days of Royal Niger Company in Nigeria. He had 3 steamers, and most of the steamers went as far as Yola on the Benue and went as far as New Busa on the Niger. And that helped him to understand how to be able to approach Nigeria. Of course, at some point he lost the control and the British Crown would take over. But what I'm trying to explain is that the extractive structure, the infrastructure and the governance, and I think another example to tell you how extractive governance was the reason or the rationale behind the amalgamation was nothing but an accounting decision. The Northern Protectorate were making a lot of losses. In fact, for 9 years, the Southern Protectorate of Nigeria was subsidizing the running of the Northern Protectorate of Nigeria from 1901 till, not 9 years, actually for 13 years, sorry, from 1901 till 1914. And the decision had to be made, 1914, because of course the decision was made in January 14th, 1914. But the decision in 1914 that Lugard pushed for was that it made no sense to run two protectorates or two colonial projects, just bring them together. And we'll cover the losses that way. So, again, that accounting decision was because they weren't really doing a lot of work in terms of extraction in the north compared to the south. Of course, that will change much later, as we know. At some point in the 1930s, a lot of the groundnut exports in the north were pivotal in terms of the fiscal legroom of running the colonial Nigeria. So now, I go into 1960 and 1970, and I'm trying to regurgitate the point of one of the earlier speakers, where he said we did not have thinkers when framing Nigeria, compared to, of course, say, Singapore, or compared to even America. The American project, because as we all know, after the revolution, had a lot of thinkers who have written a lot of works. You can go back and retrace and reframe, and American political society is basically a nostalgic project based on the writings of this great man during the revolution. So you can see the role of thinking in terms of nation building. We lost that in the 1960s. There were some positives from Tafawa Balewa in terms of how he negotiated for the Kainji Dam belt and a number of other projects, but we generally lost that. And the reason why we lost that was because we continued the British colonial project, which was just extraction. I'll give you some data that helps you contextualize what I'm trying to say. Nigeria's railway infrastructure stock is about 4,333 kilometers. 3,300 kilometers of that were built by the built by the Brits, if I'm not mistaken. 950 kilometers were built by the Nigerian government, and most of them very recently. The standard gauge rails that we have seen from Warri to Itakpe, the Kaduna to Abuja rail line, the metro in Abuja, the metro in Lagos. That's about it. For road infrastructure, we have just 60,000 kilometers out of nearly 240,000 kilometers that are tarred. So you have a situation where close to 70% of your road infrastructure is untarred, or basically not in good shape whatsoever. I can go on and on and on, but I want to crunch everything I'm saying back into the next 2 minutes. The next 1 minute, please.
Basil, we might not have the time, but I wanted to take you up on this, right? When you say, let's go back to the Nigeria in 1960 with Lugard as the premier of all the Nigeria, we had a law then that the states, so you had, say, Lagos State, for instance, was where the ports were. Lagos, Port Harcourt, where the ports were. Then you had the northern Nigeria, they owned the groundnut. So when northern Nigeria sells groundnuts, the groundnut revenue, 70% goes to the north. About 13% goes to the center. So when the north exports groundnuts, Lagos State, not Southern Protectorate, Lagos State, Lagos region, the western region, retain the excise duties at the port. Not the at the port, like also a competition of the economy, right? So in effect, the north was only doing quote unquote badly because the southern states were retaining the revenues from the export. The way this nation was set up, the southern states simply took over from the British and retained the revenue on export, so that a Kano state exporting maize will pay Lagos State to export the maize. But in reality, if you go back before those laws were passed, the north of Nigeria was making more revenues in dollar terms for Nigeria.
I think you're mistaken a bit. What I said, the anecdote that I used of the Northern Protectorate being subsidized for 10 to 14 years was between 1901 to 1914. And remember, immediately after I finished it, I said, but in the 1930s, the Northern Protectorate played a pivotal role in funding a lot of infrastructure projects. A lot of people don't know this, but groundnut revenues were responsible largely for building the port in Lagos. So yeah, you're right.
Okay, great. Just want to make that point that great. So the North was subsidized because it just came into the Union. But once they came into the Union, they then supported the South again. Okay, fine. If you could run on the next 1 minute, I'd love that.
Don't forget the invasion of Northern Nigeria was only completed in 1903 when the then Sultan Atahir the First had to leave. Not leave. He was killed, of course, but then most of his what we call them, most of the people that survived that particular war, that in particular invasion, left for Sudan, present day Sudan, yes, current, just around Darfur. And so after that, it took a while for them to start to get used to the British system, the colonial system. So it took a while. But aside from that, we have to also be very honest here. The Northern Nigerian Protectorate already had an understanding of taxation when compared to the Southern Nigerian Protectorate. So it's still confusing as to why, for those 14 years, between 1901 to 1914, they were not making as much money as possible and they had to be subsidized. So that's another question that some historians or economic historians will have to highlight. But yeah, do take the floor, Carl, again.
Oh, yeah, just great historical background there. Just want to give context now. Love it considerably. Thank you. Yeah. Let me get Sahid.
Okay, thank you very much, Kalu, for giving me this opportunity. Thank everybody on the speaker and the listener. Yes, okay, I will look at the good, the bad, and what we need to do in the future. So, quickly, the good one. Comparing Nigeria from 1960 to now,
we have more cities, we've built more roads, and we've built more railways, more ports, power, refineries, more schools, more universities, more hospitals. We have more wealth now compared to that time. Nigerians are living better now than that time. Then most Nigerians are working as a civil servant. The others are living in a face me slap you. Now most Nigerians are living averagely comfortable in a flat than face me and face you. And Nigeria now travel more abroad than then. Then we travel within Nigeria. Now Nigeria travel abroad for their holidays. Might be good one, might be bad one. So the life we live now compared to then is more average, comfortable compared to where we are coming from in the 70s, 80s. So these are good ones. In the political part, are we getting it right? No, we are not getting it right yet. The military slowed us down from the incursion in 66. We would have achieved more, but they slow us down. Because I remember the Western regions were able to build all these Ikeja industrial estate, the Agara industrial estate, the farm settlements all over the Western regions, and we are set for industrializations. That is why we are looking up to by the other countries like China and the rest, because of what they were able to do within that 1955 and 1966. So, but when the military came, they slowed us down. They created a unitary systems which slowed us down. And when they handed over to the civilian, they handed over a defective constitution to us, which has actually slows our growth. We're supposed to have a federating unit that will be able to control their resources, but that's not what we have now. We have the governors that go and look for the rent city in Abuja every month, and they are lazy. They only know how to spend money. They don't know how to generate. That's the irony of the constitution we are running now. They don't know how to generate money. They don't know how to create jobs. And the only thing that can help us is for the governors, the local government, to start making people to work. A lot of people are not working. They are just liability to the systems. We need to put them to work, to be productive. We have arable land. We could not cultivate it. We keep complaining we are hungry. And we have youth population. Even the aged countries, they are doing better than us. We have youth population that are laughing around, doing nothing but to be on social media and be creating nonsense. So these are the area we need to look at. In terms of future, yes, the future is bright. The economic dynamic is changing from the social subsidy economy to capital intensive economy, where you pay for what you use. And that is the way forward. Yes, it's tough at Indonesia. It was tough for England too, when they were doing their own. So it will be tough too. You just have to go through this and make sure that the country move forward. So move forward.
Sahid, a few questions for you again, and I just want to clarify what you're saying. So you are saying, I know in the past Nigerians wanted to work for the government, civil servants. It was a thing of pride to work for the government, because there was the standard of living was higher back then than today. That's number one. And just number two, is there any nation you know that they pay for their services 100%? For instance, they pay for power without subsidies, or they pay for water without subsidies. Any nation on earth you know that this will cause that, like, in Nigeria where we are paying for full power, full PMS, full medical, full education without subsidies? Any nation you can maybe point us to that has happened as well?
Yes, all the nations we are trying to copy, England, they pay for their power, they pay for their schools, apart from the basic education. And that's what we are running. It's the same thing in America.
It's subsidized.
You pay for your,
but they have a subsidy. That's why I'm going to. There's a subsidy for education. But it's
they have subsidy on food.
Yeah.
They have subsidy on food.
Yeah.
Yes, they have subsidy on food, yes. But they pay for their petrol.
But there's subsidy
for their electricity.
There's subsidy on petrol, there's subsidy on power, there's subsidy on education, there's subsidy on healthcare, NHS, there's subsidy on everything. So in Nigeria, can you name a subsidy that an average Nigerian living in Surulere enjoys?
Number one, the primary health is subsidized. If you patronize the government hospitals, the public primary and secondary school is free. Okay. The university, you are not paying tuition fee.
Okay. All right.
So it's subsidized. Even the petrol we are complaining about, we are not paying the full-fledged, the reflection costs of the petrol.
All right,
so it's something that even the electricity that we are paying, it's only Band A that are paying the cost effective. The others are paying the subsidized rate.
I hear you. No problem. I hear you. Just want to get that in there. All right. Thanks, Sahid. I appreciate you making those 3 points in order. I do appreciate it. Let me get Alien X. Sahid, thanks so much. Alien X, you got the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Carlo, did you agree to that? Or you were just
it's an opinion. I just want to make him speak.
Okay. I just wanted to say, I heard one of the speakers, that's why I even came up, say that there's no hope. For me, there's hope. There's hope for Nigerians, but our major issue is leadership. And I can show you the data. From 1999 to 2014, Nigeria sustained a growth of, I think, 6.73%, 16 years straight. And then, in fact, till 2014, we were the largest economy in Africa. 568 billion. That was what.
Sorry,
my background is noisy.
Yeah, Elia, let me get you. Fix that background. Come back to me. You got your audio is popping, and then you got noise. Fix it and come back to me. Then request.
Okay.
Let me get Igbalo the farmer. Igbalo the farmer, farm executive. How you doing, sir? Please go ahead. Farm executive.
Yeah, thank you, Carlo.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I think I did not even pick the name. There was somebody talking about Nigerians not actually solving the problem. Yeah, I actually agree with the person. And honestly speaking, I still believe strongly that one of the fastest way to just make things work out in this country is through having right leadership. That being said, I think Nigerians as a whole, each of us individual has a fundamental problem. We should stop because how come we have been having so many governors, so many political appointees? How come we do not have a single person that we can vividly say? When I'm talking about single person, I mean even let's start picking the states from the southeast, from the north, from the southwest. How come we do not have a single exceptional person? And for me, I've come to realize that it is our general fundamental problems. And that is why things, and if you look at few individuals that are willing to do things differently, people start calling them all kind of names. Oh, he does not, don't even get him involved because he's not going to allow you to do this. He's not going to allow. But we have been so used to the wrong ways of doing things, and you see, religion and tribe again is contributing to all of this. And sometimes I ask people, okay, this person that is making life difficult for everybody, virtue of his post, and you keep on defending and you keep on saying, oh, because it's done. Are you getting different aside one the people others are getting? No, we are all messed up with the way the country is being run. And if at all we want to have it, and I've been saying this severally, I think people are not paying attention to it. We are colonized not as individuals. I think psychologically too, we are colonized. Because I've never seen Nigerians discussing solving problem in peculiarity with our identity, with who we are, with tribes and everything. And we cannot continue. For me, this is just my opinion. I don't think we can continue like this and expect any significant change when the whole 36 governor of the federation on a monthly basis always expecting something coming from Abuja every month. And you see, when you give people, even a mad person, when you give them too much of money, you see them continue to react in a different way because actually they do not work for this money. And let me just give you one typical example of what just happened. We saw what happened in Rivers State. And should I say the whole Rivers State people, because the governor decided that, oh, everybody have to vote for APP or what? And look at what happened there. And except we are politically exposed to see that, yeah, we all need to get involved. Because directly or indirectly, I used to make this joke. The fact that you come from Nigeria, I would say your standard of living a very good life has been reduced by 30%. Naturally, the fact that you come from this country, naturally. Then you battling what you are supposed to face again as an individual. I can tell you about 3 to 5 farmers that I knew. Actually met them on Twitter that we started, let me say, from the beginning. I saw them, they were also looking for land, they were like, oh, they need to buy. If you see these guys now, imagine a single farmer having a single tractor worth almost 300 million. And when I asked him, how are you able to get these machines? Once I'm able to provide banks with necessary documents, they give me machines, and I have to work. And some of them even pay through their farm produce. But unfortunately, most of these things do not happen in Nigeria, and you continue to wonder, is this how we want to even... And another problem we are facing now. People normally say it is a lie. If you look at the rates at which I'll call them finance brain. You see guys doing fine, doing great, making money in Nigeria. No matter the amount of money they are making, you see them still having plan B or want to go out of the country. I know a friend that has turnover of over 1 billion naira in Nigeria. He has left. His business collapsed now. He said he's not even coming. But every time I said, guy, can you just manage this business together? I said, see, guy, I've come to realize that it is not that I really need big money.
Yeah, let me ask you.
I live comfortably. I live comfortably.
Farmer guy, I mean, your sentiments are shared, but let me take you back to the point you made about we don't have any outstanding governors. If you remember, I don't know how old you are, in the Second Republic in Nigeria, we had governors like Lateef Jakonde, Ambrose Ali, the guy in the east, what's his name, Mbakwe, even in the north, Rimi. These were governors, these were infrastructure was being built. Till today, we say Jakonde School, Jakonde Estate, till today. Do you know what Jakonde did in Lagos? Schools, housing estates, roads, not one school. I saw news yesterday, the governor was commissioning housing estates. It was a big event, and people were saying, "Oh, the governor's commissioner housing estate." The budget of that state is larger than the budget of many West African nations. So the state of Lagos should be commissioning projects the same way the state of Ivory Coast and Ghana are commissioning projects. But go today, Jakande Market, Jakande School, Jakande till today, 2024. And so I think what happened is that we then, and these were governors that were managing more territory with less revenue. Jakande had the revenue today of a local government in Lagos. The revenue Jakande had to grow Lagos is the revenue of perhaps a Tiosa or today. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's the quality of people we have now brought out. The quality. Look at Kogi State. That guy that was the governor of Kogi State became the governor because the guy that was supposed to be the governor passed away. And this guy was brought from nowhere to Kogi, and he ripped Kogi dry. And he has put a new guy there. Do you really think that Kogi State, that should be the richest state in Nigeria, Kogi, with Lokoja, with rivers, with Ajaokuta, with everything you want to think of that can make a nation rich, that state should be one of the richest. Do you really expect that state, the next 5 years, is going to double their GDP per capita? It is the quality of people that we have.
I agree with you, Carl. I agree with you. And to be honest and to be fair to most of the names you have mentioned, because I remember when I was in Kano, almost all the irrigation facilities there was built by this governor we just mentioned. But you know, how many percentage are these people? That's improvement. And you see, when those whom we assumed that should, because majority of us people run away from governance. We're like, oh, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to, and it is right time. But I'm happy because a lot of young guys now have started saying that, see, either you like it or not, these people as a state in dictating how your life will look like. And you said 5 years. Just that guy will spend 8 years, like, except death. Because either by reading or by any means, he's going to spend 8 years. It has become their birthright that after 4 years they must do second.
And we're sitting here. Do we expect that the GDP per capita of Kogi will double in these 8 years, or are we going to blame IMF? I mean, we sitting here know what's going to happen. So why are we there? You know, Nigerians need to smell the coffee. I mean, you had governors in the past that ran the real free education, that ran the real free primary health care. I used to watch Professor Luke Ransome-Kuti on TV, do TV shows, a minister teaching women in Yoruba how to wash their hands, how to feed the babies, how to do IRC, this salt and pepper something. The minister on TV, teaching primary health care. Can you imagine a minister today doing that? They don't do all that. They don't do all that.
Yeah. Just to chime in to the conversation, like, I actually remember Sanusi Fafowa, Cam David West.
Thank you.
The interesting thing is that it wasn't that they were perfect people, but you could see the national interest. I can, listen to different speakers. I can tell you that the primary problem, and I will tell you until we deal with it, people will ignore it. You see this tribal, religious, and nepotic culture that we are exhibiting, social media, consciously, mentally, it's going to get worse. Because, you see, when people bring in solutions, and you read those solutions on tribal lands, religions, that it doesn't sell. Like, let me give you a good example. For example, we understand that Nigeria belongs to Nigeria. Integrating Lagos to other parts of the regions will have done a lot of things. It's an abomination that we don't have a rail from Anambra to Lagos. It's an abomination we don't have a rail from Anambra to Kano. It's an abomination because, you see, the thing is that it's not that we don't do these things, Kano, but you see, we are just seers, and we are just culturally we just want to be educated. We don't apply these principles. Because how do you explain the fact that the richest people and the growing upper class are highly educated and the country is worse off? Because when the founding fathers founded Nigeria, they built the principle of education, trade, and productivity. Right now, we are building our country on Big Brother Nigeria. We're building the country on entertainment. We're building, which is not bad. But the problem is that these industries cannot cater for the large population. And until we culturally say to ourselves that enough is enough, whether it's Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, the Nigerian passport says we are Nigerians. Until we divide, we are Nigerians. We kill off all these people that promote. When I say kill off, I'm not saying physically, because people need to understand that we're talking intellectually. We kill off in terms of dive down this conversation. It has to stop. It has to stop. Everybody is frustrated. Everybody is angry. You know, Carlo, you mentioned great people in the past that it's not that they don't know, but they've sold tribalism and religion and all these religion quack debates around triggered people and divided the country. Look at this election. Look at the election. Even at the president's region, it was divided across the three candidates. Article 1 issue, Obi Lagos. Even among Yorubas, it's not well with the president. If you look at the East also, the East voted for President Obasanjo in 1999. So the people selling this tribal, they just enjoy the country being eaten. And they are demonic in
let me address that tribal thing. I think it's really economic. The day I joined social media, maybe 2008, 2007, there was tribal strife back then. There were bigotry back then. The difference then and now is that there are more educated people doing this quote-unquote bigotry. Back then, I could not imagine any minister or any local government chairman naming a tribe, singling them out, and saying this tribe is the cause of a problem against this tribe. But today, the spokesman to the president of Nigeria said the Igbo tribe is the problem of the Yoruba tribe. And he's in office as we speak today. He's the spokesman of the president of a nation of 2,500 tribes that include Igbos and Yoruba. So when the spokesman to the president is saying this, why do you blame the kids online that are doing bigotry? I don't blame those kids. Those kids do not have a job.
We have the competence for Kalu. Look at the fact that the president has to read hope, faith as FDIs. You know, so you can't read. You see the competence problem.
We know what they are doing now, but we know what they are doing. The presidency, and I'm naming names, so they will not say I'm going to speak directly. President Tinubu has won with 35% of the vote. The political calculation is this: if you stretch the tribes, if you separate the Igbo from the Yoruba, especially in Lagos, then when you go for re-election, you are able to win, because by the election, it will be Yoruba should vote for APC and Igbo should vote for Labour. That's the political calculation that they decided to say we want to quote unquote start Nigeria tribally to win a second term. The problem is this. That's what they're doing. The problem is this, right? When you go to FPI, we're talking now to the reality. Remittances are not done by Yorubas or Igbos or Hausas. They are done by Nigerians. If a Nigerian feels that the president can retain a gentleman in office that has said that the Igbos have the problem of Nigeria, why should he do remittances? That's why you see that young guy came here and said he sees no future. I don't blame the kids online that are saying bigotry. See, do you know a kid online said, I will resume my bigotry. I don't know what they were fighting about, but he said he wanted to do peace, and they rebuffed his peace effort. So in his own mouth, he said, I will resume my bigotry from next week. To them, it's a game. The same way I yab Arsenal people, that's the same way they're yabbing Igbos and Yorubas.
Yeah,
they don't know what they are doing. I don't blame them.
Exactly. But two don't make it right. And I get what you're saying. And that's why I feel the president really needs to unify the country. because we can't solve economic issues if we don't solve this tribal division and all this fanaticism growing.
64 years.
Yes.
64 years. We have come back. This is a nation. Nigeria went to South Africa and kicked out apartheid. Nigeria went to even the Commonwealth and kicked out racism. Nigeria has been to Lebanon, to the Congo, to Sierra Leone, to Liberia to kick out rebels and to ensure peace. Then in this same Nigeria, the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has a spokesman working for him that said, and I quote, "I have no apology to any tribal comments I made, that the Igbos of Nigeria are the problem of the Yorubas in Nigeria." He still has a job today. When a spokesman of a president says that, and the president, he said it before he was appointed, and the president appointed him and retained him, then what you are saying, you are telling the young men and women of Nigeria that they should go ahead and do bigotry. And of course they would do it. Why would they do it? The young learn from the old. So if you want to stop bigotry, you don't tell children on online, stop abusing yourselves. That's nonsense. The president has got to calm down and say, no. Whether you come and say, oh, he was misquoted, go off ramp. Stop it. Because right now, Togo, small Togo, would invade Nigeria, and one part of Nigeria will say, we don't care. Go and fight Togo. That's why you see this nonsense happening in Nigeria. Bandits are there. Nobody cares. It's their country. The people don't understand that the fish you eat in the south is from Borno. If Nigeria was a peaceful country, the gold in Zamfara and Kebbi would have been mined, would have been used to strengthen the Naira. We would take gold from Zamfara, from Kebbi, from Osun, mint it, take it to CBN, and the value of the Naira will rise. But nobody cares. The stuff in Borno in Zamfara it's not bandits. They are looking after the gold. But Southerners don't care. Who did you vote for? Go and sort it out. They've divided the country. NSA yesterday said the country was safe. Nobody's clapping. The NSA, nobody's, because we are divided. A divided nation can never progress. Or you are blaming that a divided nation can never progress, Olumide. It's just that.
Yeah, and Carlo, just briefly, I think that is what I've been saying to the public, that, you see, one of the gains of President Obasanjo was not really because he brought in geniuses or competent people in his economy. The fact was that the country was largely unified. In fact, the Yorubas didn't vote for Obasanjo, if you remember. It was primarily the North and the Southeasterners. The Southeasterners even chose Obasanjo ahead of Ojukwu. So it tells you that the country was more unified. But I understand where you are going. And it's sad that even at the political elite, the division is. But like you said, there's a gain they're looking for, which probably might be induced. But I think it's left for us, particularly those of us that I think we went to the four corners of a classroom. And we need to understand that we can't have meaningful conversations when we judge people's conversations by the tribe they belong to, or how they sound, or how they think. We really need to start waking up, because previous speakers have said it, that the ruling class is a reflection of the populace, and it has a lot of meaning to that. Because there is no day we talk about the Naira, key economic issues, and people who bring in tribal. It's gotten so bad, and I don't know how we can stop it.
We posted a chart here that says from 1960 to 2022, the highest GDP in Nigeria per capita was 2014. The response should say what was happening in 2014. We had a high GDP per capita, we had a high foreign reserves, we were doing a lot of trade. That's why the per capita was high. It's not to say I was poor, it was an evil man, it was a Yoruba man. That's not the response. Right now in West Africa, Nigeria is the largest economy in West Africa. The French West African nations are trying to introduce a currency to be used as the reserve currency in West Africa. If they introduce that currency, what you will see is that the Naira will become a second-class currency. We would have to use the Naira and exchange to the Echo before we can do international trade. And that Echo that I want to do will be backed by the Euro, in quotes, through France, which will then make us even doubly dependent on them. It will be worse than what it is today. If Nigeria was a nation that was organized and we had unity of purpose, we could fight this together. We don't care. They can't do it because of largest economies. Like going to Germany to bring the new currency. Germany and France will not agree. And this is happening because the nation is not, should we say, acting together. We're not together. This thing on social media, abusing this, abusing that, it's poverty, it's kids doing it, but the kids are taking their inspiration from the elders. Let me stop there. Millie Shield, you got the floor. Sorry about the diversion, Millie Shield. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here again. Nigeria, 64 years, the good, the bad, and the hopeful. The good, yeah, there was a country that can be studied in the notebooks, in the textbooks. That's the good part, just for history purposes. Just read loud. The bad, the country is going through a kind of state captured. The country has been captured by the people that get hold of the justice system, the police system. They have everything that they need to capture the country. Is in their back right now, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. If you talk too much, the DSS will knock on your door and take you away. And the hopeful, don't get it twisted. Forget about it. No hope anywhere for nothing. No hope. The only remaining thing that can exist or that may happen is what I call God's factor. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night.
Appreciate that. Let's get Cindy. Cindy, what's that? Cindy, there you go. Cindy, what's in your mind? Cindy, going once, Cindy going twice.
Good evening, Mr. Kalu.
How are you?
Confirm you can hear me.
I can.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I just came up to buttress what Mr. Lumide said from the onset, and and a statement from 2 or 3 spaces ago. From the onset, he mentioned Nigeria being, a delisted, company if it was a share. So, and I quite agree with him 100% on that, because if you peg Nigeria and the performing share on the stock market, you realize that you can't even earn a dividend from Nigeria in another 10 years. I agree with him 100%. Also, you realize that Mr. Lumide made a statement from the last space, I think 2 or 3 spaces ago. He mentioned you can't really trust accountants because, the information they put out sometimes, are quite contradictory, because I think he was referencing, a published financials from the NNPC, and what the director was saying, they were quite contradictory. I just want to say, I cannot fault his opinion, honestly. I agree with him to an extent, because sometimes you just work with only information you are privy with. Sometimes you go to these places, it's only the information available to you, the data available to you, you can work with. You cannot work with something you cannot see or cannot vouch for. You cannot work with it. We see in Nigeria time and time again, we see government parastatals flouting their own laws, flouting their own guidelines, which are the reason, you see contradictory information all the time. Parastatals is saying something else. Information out there saying something else. I cannot fault him on that 100%. I agree with him. I remember you mentioned one time, about the fraud going on with First Bank and a company like that. I agree with you, Mr. Kalu. Then you mentioned if the internal audit department was functioning. We see Nigeria as a country where laws are we don't follow our guidelines. We do not follow them. Even the very agencies implement, set up to follow, to enforce these guidelines, they do not follow them. So how do we expect the country to progress? It cannot work, Mr. Kalu. We can't progress as a country like that. Time and time again, these things keep happening, but what do we see on the timeline? Currently going on the timeline is which tribe has the best suit. With everything going on
just
in Nigeria,
annoying. That's just annoying.
What we're talking about is which tribe has the best suit. It's very, very I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's really, really disappointing as a country. You look at other countries, what's going on there, what can you say about Nigeria? Nothing. You can't vouch for anything. There's nothing to be proud about Nigeria. You just look at the timeline, look at what, we are engaged in every day as a people.
But what you have nothing to be proud about for Nigeria from 1960 till 2024? Nothing strikes you that we can hold on to that to build on?
I would say to you, like from like the 1960s to the let's say to like the 90s. I don't know if most of the things available are only on paper because we were not there, we were not born around that time to know what some people enjoyed. So I cannot vouch for those periods. I can only say, okay, I read it on paper. It was there. Some people say they enjoyed it. Some said they did not. Some have never enjoyed anything. So I cannot, give 100% opinion that it was better or it wasn't. So, but from time, looking back history, if you go back, you see that what's happening now, it's been happening before, but it's been amplified because I think the presence of social media is talked about even more. So I don't know where we are heading to as a country.
I got you. All right, no worries. Let's get Aki in here. Cynthia, thank you so much. Take yourself in London. Yes, Aki, you've got the floor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you please confirm you can hear me?
I can, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to first of all, I want to say some of the things I will say will be incredibly unpopular and will probably not make a lot of people.
Aki, what do you ever say that is popular? Aki,
Okay. So I would say when we talk about the people that we have in the National Assembly and changing the people that we have in National Assembly and whatnot, I think that project is a project of 200 years, 250 years. It's not a project that is going to be done in 50 years. Not a project that will be done in 60 years or even 100 years. And before people will come here and say, this is a pessimistic take, look at other countries. Look at India. India is a big democracy. You have a significant chunk of the lower house that are involved in one corruption charge or the other. So it is something that is going to take a century. And unfortunately for Nigeria, we do not have the privilege of time, largely because of climate change and largely because of things that are going on in the world today. So in the next 20 to 30 years, there will be a lot of things that will change in our environment for the worse. This is not scaremongering. This is not God forbid. It is already baked in. We can see it already even with rainfall patterns and whatnot. Look at this year. We had July, August in a lot of Nigeria where rain did not fall at all. Even September too, barely fell. And that would affect crop output and whatnot. And with a country where we don't have good irrigation systems, that basically compounds the problem. Now, on the issue of tribalism, I do not agree that the tribalism problem is from up high or is from the politicians. It is in the taproot of Nigeria. You don't need to go far to see or to hear ethnic epithets, ethnic stereotypes being voiced out. Unfortunately, because of the economic problems that we are having, and this happens in every country in the world, because of the economic problems that we have been having, it has brought out a lot of the ethnic problems that we've had ever since this political contraption has been created since 1914. In 1914, we had a tribalism problem, a big tribalism problem. In 1960, we did. 1970, we did. So it is not something that the politicians are bringing. It is the easiest way for politicians to be able to source for votes because those votes are readily available. And in a system where the government is sort of weak, one of the best ways that they can show up their political base is by dividing up
different constituencies based on ethnicity. It is just simple politics here. This is political machination at its finest. So a lot of times people think what is good politics must be good policy. It's not always the truth. In this case, it is good politics for the reigning government to divide the country up. But of course, it's bad for the country in so many ways. Now, before we start to talk about Obasanjo, one of the problems I think to have with this our conversation is we blame the Obasanjo government. The Obasanjo government was a deviation from the norm of the way Nigeria actually runs. What you are seeing today is the way the Nigerian state usually runs. It is as faithless and as ineffective as it currently is. That is the way the Nigerian state runs. So you can't be comparing at the zenith. You can't be comparing the norm of the country with the zenith every single time. You hear people say the Obasanjo government. Now, the thing is, part of the reason why the successes happened, let's be honest with ourselves here, why successes happened during the Obasanjo government was because we had high oil prices and we had the coincidence of a president that was way better than the norm that we usually have, and was willing to ride on the wave of optimism that Nigerians had after the declaration of the Fourth Republic. He rode it, and they were able to do a lot of things that they would usually not have been able to do because of the dark forces of the Nigerian society had not yet come together to actually exert their force on the way the country runs. So, for instance, you are talking about there was more cohesion and all of that. Yes, there was no cohesion because one, people wanted the military to go. Two, we thought, this system is going to be better, reduce corruption. Of course, it did not reduce corruption. I can swear that there were people in the 90s that thought, if we brought the Fourth Republic to change everything. It did not change. Plenty things have not changed. In fact, a lot of things have actually gone worse. One of them being public provision of water, public provision of education, public provision of almost everything has dropped. Now, going forward, when it comes to what I'm hopeful of for Nigeria, there is a lot that is very difficult to really say that you could really be hopeful, realistically hopeful, except you're just trying to sell something or trying to be delusional or anything. But what I feel, if I had to, and I'm really grasping at straws at this point. It's not as if I'm that hopeful of the future, but I think I can just point to a few things, particularly the rise of technology industry in Nigeria that has become a big and a growing sector of our economy. But unfortunately, that will not employ a lot of people. I would say some of it too from our young people that are making waves outside the country, especially in the area of sports. Those are things I can be hopeful for. In terms of the things that have to do with manufacturing or the growth of the economy, I really do not see Nigeria breaking out of this rut that we're currently finding ourselves. And for everybody on this space, we need to realize that if you hear that Nigeria is growing at 3% a year or 3.5% a year, that's actually terrible because population is growing at, give or take, 2.7%. So it means that every single year, the GDP per person or the income per person is actually increasing by less than 1% a year. So if Nigeria continues to grow at 3.5% with all the headwinds that we're facing from climate, from the geopolitical problems that are gathering around the clouds, which could increase inflation even higher than the current days, I think Nigeria is really in for a lot. And unfortunately, as I always keep on saying, I would always advocate. I think last week I advocated for it, and I've advocated for it in the past. Nigeria needs to move to high levels of investment. I think that's the only thing that can bring us out of this rut. Anybody that is telling you that it is about floating one currency or it's about deregulating this or cutting one subsidy here or whatnot, we have done this to a large extent with this current government. We can see what is going on. It has not boosted our growth. So we need to do the heavy lifting of manufacturing, of increasing investment in the real sector, not simply just in Afrobeats. Because we hear a lot of things Afrobeat. How many people
is Afrobeat doing in a whole year. We need to do the heavy lifting of employing people in the real sector, in the construction sector, in the value added of agriculture, not going to farm. I'm not talking of going to farm. We don't need more people in the farm. We need those people on the farms to be more productive, not more hands. We need more people in the value added sector of agriculture. That's really what we need. We need more people. We need more companies in the manufacturing sector. Not simply only doing cement and whatnot, but doing much more higher value added manufacturing to move this economy and this country forward and break free from the ethnic bigotry and all of that, which really that's what Nigeria really is. Sorry to say, that's where we've been created.
Yes. A few issues on one. Let's talk about that ethnic thing. You know, America in 1967 passed Civil Rights Act. You know, you can't really call anybody a quota. You can't use the N word on anybody in America. You can't openly be racist, you know. But Obama, being the president, has a psychological effect. Before he became president, you still couldn't call anybody, you couldn't be openly racist, right? Can you imagine if today in America, a guy is appointed a secretary of state or even a minister that called on his Twitter page says, I quote unquote hate BLACK people, or BLACK people are the problem? It wouldn't happen. The point I make about this, because like I said, it's been there since I joined social media. If you go to some sites in 2008, it was there. Nigerians are a tribal people. We always compete tribally. But we have never, and I could challenge me, we have never had a member of government or any minister or anybody as close to the president come out and make a statement, not using code words, using direct words, mentioning two tribes, calling one tribe the problem of, not of the people, though. He says one entire tribe is the problem of the other tribe. We've never in the history of Nigeria. They use Nyamiri, that's the code, the derogatory word, but he used the name of the tribe. He called the name of the tribe. This is the difference. I want to go to the economic side. You want to say something on the tribal team before we go to the economic side? You want to?
Okay, so can I also say this? I'm not going to defend the current government, and I think my views about the current government are fairly well known and all of that. I will say this, and this is a very controversial statement. But unfortunately, if you look through the sweep of Nigerian history, the unifying institution of Nigeria has been the military. Once you've had civilians in government, they've always found ways of dividing the country based on ethnicity.
Okay.
If you look at the Second Republic, during the elections went haywire. We're just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. It's just that we're lucky at the beginning of the Fourth Republic that we do not have these types of openly ethnic appeals.
I hear you.
Just the way Nigeria.
Let's go to the economic side. I hear you completely. Let's go to, you said Obasanjo succeeded because he had high oil prices. I've posted the oil. Okay, I've posted the oil prices on my tier, so anybody can go. Just look at my last post now. When Obasanjo paid the FX debt of Nigeria, it was the same oil price, about let's say average 74, 75, that Buhari had. The same average price that Buhari had. The difference, and Tinubu is making more. Tinubu's oil price is about 80. So Obasanjo paid all the FX debt at 75. Buhari got oil more than 75. Tinubu got oil more than 75. The difference with Obasanjo was exporting 2.3 million barrels per day. Buhari and Tinubu cannot collectively export more than 1.5. They are adding condensate. Their own budget says 1.7. Tinubu had not been able to export 1.7. Why was Obasanjo able to export 2.3? Because there was safety at the oil rigs place. There was safety at the export. They were stealing, but he was able to export 2.3 million barrels per day. That's the difference. It's not the oil price, it's the amount exported, the volume. And that's why the Naira was very strong. That's why we had reserves, because he exported more. All Tinubu has to do If Tinubu can stop the oil theft and get his oil exports today to 2 million barrels per day, the naira will rise to 700, 600 to $1. End of story. End of it. We don't need to do all this blaming Binance, Cardoso selling dollars. It does not need to do it. Just get your NSA to focus on exporting crude oil. Once we can get to 2 million barrels, who born you to hold dollars? Who born you to hold dollars? Try it now. Try it and hold us and see. Try and hold us and see.
President Obama wasn't buying Escali, he didn't buy a new private jet of $100 million. You see, another problem that is exposing this present government is that despite the fact that you could openly say that it didn't meet oil theft, you could argue that, okay, the leakages in the oil industry was before you. The leakages in this present government is like pouring water in a basket. You know, let's look at the black market, for example. Nigerian government, unfortunately. Look at the black market. But look at the black market, for example. If, for example, we are even accounting for that 1.5 million barrels a day, and government coffers was tight, the civil service were accountable. Carlo, the naira will not be dancing like this. I'm telling you the truth. The naira will not be dancing like this. So, Carlo, apart from the fact that we cannot even elevate our revenue capacity, things have gotten worse. Look at, I calculated the number of bulletproof vehicles state officials buy a year. If you just do the math conservatively, it's 2 times more than the budget of education. But when you speak to all these experts in the financial circles, they will tell you that government spending to GDP is low. They will give you official statistics, beautify data. And that's one of the problems we have in Nigeria. Classroom economics cannot solve our current issues. We need people that have the street mentality to account for the country's natural resources, to treat Nigeria's natural wealth like their own personal wealth. Until we do that, there's no.
Are you not following Budget IT's revelations? Budget IT, the guys that track budgets in Nigeria, where they are showing us, you see Ministry of Oceanography buying jeeps, street lights, oceanography. So what the budget in Nigeria is that the guys in the House of Assembly and Senate will look for a quote unquote placeholder agency. So when the agency submits a budget of say 100 million, they will pack all the projects in that agency. And the agency's budget gets passed. But of course, once it is passed, they send the money back to the guys. So a long time ago, I think it was 10 years ago, I stopped analyzing budgets. All I do is look at the implementation report. I don't look at the budget again. Nigerian budgets are a complete and utter waste of time. I have a personal friend that was in House of Assembly. He would show me how they do budgets, how they are. You are wasting your time. This 12 trillion that they're talking about, pray 1 or 2 roads get done. That's why I keep on posting. Nigeria will not see. They will do 1 road here, they will do 1 hospital here, but a generational transformative change will not happen in this country if you are waiting for the government. Anything that's going to happen today is from Dangote built refinery. NNPC doesn't have any refinery. If Nigeria had 5 Dangotes, we won't need the government. If we had 5 Dangotes, imagine if Nigeria had a Dangote in this country.
Yeah, because that's it. Look at what you just mentioned. A ministry, I think it's a federal polytechnic. They had a budget of 667 million, and they approved 40 billion.
There are many of them. Budget IT should name those companies line by line. Who is the DG of the Oceanography Institute? That DG should come out and explain why he's building streetlights in a do or whatever. It's a waste of time. All this money you guys are getting. Listen, the Nigerian budgets. Let me not give you a crude oil in Nigeria. All the crude oil, 100% of the crude oil you make in Nigeria does not pay salaries and recurrent expenditures. All of it. All the revenues, that's add oil, add non-oil revenues in Nigeria. All of it combined cannot pay revenue and debt servicing. You don't have a country. Your budget doesn't mean anything. Your revenues mean nothing. You are not just borrowing to pay pay salaries. You are borrowing to repay loans and borrowing to repay everything. This is not my take. Look at the budget that the Nigerian government publishes. Look at how the ways and means that the president said he had repaid. We paid 1.6 trillion in interest to the Central Bank of Nigeria. 1.6 trillion. That is more than I think it's more than customs revenues. Let me explain to you again. What the federal government of Nigeria is paying to the CBN as interest on ways and means is more than what Nigerian customs is giving to the federal government as revenues. So you ask yourself, who are we deceiving? Just open the damn borders, let the things come in for free, because you are paying ways and means 1.6 trillion. It's not my figure. I posted it before. Go and look at it. And this is
I've explained to you why they will not open the borders. And if you look at writing reports from places like Benin Republic, Togo, who do you think is bringing that volume? The population of Benin Republic, exactly. When Benin Republic is consuming more Indian exports than China, it tells you that there are a lot of leakages.
So Dangote then built a refinery. He invests $20 billion. Name any investment you have had in the last 10 years by a single American in America, in Europe, or China. I dare you. Name any investment you know on earth today by an individual that is 20 billion. I dare you. But that, you can't find this volume. There's none. Individual, 20 billion. Yeah. But Dangote does that in Nigeria. No, let me make this point. Dangote does 20 billion. Then what does the government of Nigeria say? The refinery is illegal. It produces fake products. That's the response of the federal government of Nigeria when an individual builds a $20 billion refinery that they do not have. I can want to say something.
Okay. Sorry, just for a minute. You know, Carlo, the price of that, you see, if you look at Dangote in recent months, because I like to study these rich guys, you see that his diversification is becoming more aggressive. The trust he has in the political system is not someone that talks like the lad that will be very blunt or open. He's indirectly shifting his risk because he had a trading office in London for his refinery, but the fact that he's opening a trading office in Dubai, he said a signal that if we don't get our acts together, you will just see that our billionaires will become what the Russians did during before Putin came to power. During the years that he had to move to the UK, we really have to stop these political games and take advantage of people that are willing to take risk in our country. 20 billion is not beans. If the guy comes to the stock market next year, market bookmakers are saying that our market valuation will increase by at least 30 to 40%. The present stock market valuation is 1/5 less than Mark Zuckerberg, a 40-year-old founder of Meta, which is currently valued at $211 billion. This is enough to sink in our head on how endemic even our elite are in terms of wealth capacity. We are poor rich-wise, we are poor-wise. So it's enough for us to wake up and start producing rather than playing all these politics. Nobody's getting that all from all these games.
The future, I can go ahead.
Okay, so I want to say,
last night for you. Yeah?
Yes. So I think in all of this, I think we need to remember that. Fortunately, I'm not one of those people who sees like some sunlit uplands anytime soon. But unfortunately, we need to remember that our population is growing as all these things are happening. And so I just hope against that something, someone will come up and Nigeria probably finds its way. Thank you very much.
Let me just say this. The future of Nigeria is really dependent on how good the Dangote refinery does. Like it or not, I say it again, the future of Nigeria today is dependent on that Dangote refinery. If you look at the largest non-oil exporter today is Dangote, where urea fertilizer. That fertilizer open and suddenly you see our non-oil exports go up because we count that urea fertilizer as part of our non-oil. Dangote refinery, if that refinery gets the crude oil it needs, it is able to export the byproducts. Those byproducts, if managed properly, can pay a subsidy to Nigerians. So that means we would export the crude oil. We're able to get the byproducts also exported. It will create a fund. We're able to pay subsidy and increase the revenues forex that come to Nigeria, and the naira will gain value. That's the only hope I see in the economy today. No, I don't see any other one, because every other thing has been solved. The costs are just too high. Power is coming back. I hear we're celebrating 20 hours a day. But Olumide has a statistic he shared with me. The total power consumption for a Nigerian family is less than a fridge in the US. I heard that stat, I googled it, I still can't believe it. The total power consumption of Nigeria, not a family, of Nigeria, that's what an average Nigerian family consumes, is what a fridge in the US consumes. One fridge. So we have miles to go. We have to get to the stage where power is plentiful, but we can say we have even arrived. 20 power is in Lagos. If you go to my village, there's no power. And if there's no power in my village, that tells you that how many small villages don't have power to make food, to process, educate, to download and watch videos. That's where the real economy is. In the SMEs, out of Lagos, out of Abuja, out of those small SMEs. That's where real power is. And if we don't have it there, big one. And antimatter, you've got the floor. Antimatter, go for it.
Yeah, greetings, Kalu. First of all, I want to say thank you for your service, man. I don't know how you got the energy to be persistent.
Not good.
But what I will say is this. I'm gonna do my, little. I guess everyone has to give their opinion about good or bad, and then where things are going. I'll give the bad first. But actually, no. I first want to give a shout out to Olumide, because, bro, you set the tone. If Nigeria was a stock, it would be deleted. People shouldn't be offended by that. People shouldn't be, I guess, put to shame by that. It is reality. And sometimes a swift, blunt blow to the ribs of reality is what you need. So Illuminate set the tone for really how things are going to work out. But as far as my opinion is a little different, because I'm not into all that religious stuff. But what I will say is this. In my opinion, I think religion, tribalism, and fundamental things like consistent electricity, like you mentioned in his village, in my village as well too, problems of power. I had a small group of developers that I was helping out with a project, and one of my engineers couldn't get an apartment because she was Igbo, and this was like 2 months ago. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear these things, I mean, it's just, I think personally, I'm gonna end with a question. Here's what I'll say. I don't think Nigeria in its current state is going to be able to succeed. I think, and no one should sound like, oh my gosh, this guy's giving off despair. No, I'm just keeping it real. I think sometimes you have to swallow the reality, but look for a different way. I can rattle off so many different positives about Nigeria. Nigeria, for myself, I've had the ability to live in a few different countries, and I think it's because of my Nigerian blood flows in my veins. Pound for pound, I don't care where we are academically, we can compete with the top of the world. Okay, pound for pound, we have some of the brightest minds in some of the highest institutes of engineering, applied genetics research. I can go on. I think you all know the story. But even with that, I still say I don't think that the current trajectory is a path to success. But I do want to end with a question, and I want to see where Kalu and Rumi take this. So my question is this. Let's say there's a panel within Nigeria that has decided that Nigeria's best path forward is to divide the country into either 2 or 3 different sovereign nations. And Kalu and Olumide, you guys are the top consultants to kind of steer that forward. What are some of the key things that you would do to see those 3 nations or 2 nations form, distribute debt, resources, allocate, whatever? Do whatever you can to see those 3 new nations or 2 new nations be successful. That's the question I have for Kalu and Olumide.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to answer that question, because once we answer that question, the space will be tagged calls for the solution of the country. It will go to DSS. It's a good question.
Okay.
I don't want to go there.
But, all right. So, then how about this? let's say I'm some kind of I don't know, external resource company that has leading nations who want to pour a lot of resources into the region, and you two have been picked as consultants to provide guidance to how the three or two pillars of leadership within Nigeria can take that forward. How about that? Answer it that way.
So I would change some laws, and I would spend money differently. What laws would I change immediately? I would scrap Federal Character Commission, which means FARC would go. So anything that says we have to share funds without the principle of derivation would go. So FARC would go. Federal Character Commission would go. Number one, that goes out the window. What would happen? This means that you return the economy back to the state and the regions. So if Niger State grows all that cassava that they're growing, Niger State can register a company in Niger. So I can go to Niger and register a company in Niger. I would pay tax to Niger State government. Niger State can export that cassava and earn revenues for the state of Niger or the company that it registers from Niger. Today, company is registered by the federal government, and when you create wealth, it is shared according to derivation. So VAT will disappear from being shared for derivation, which means that Niger State creates VAT, Niger State keeps VAT. It doesn't share its VAT member. Lagos State creates VAT, Lagos State keeps VAT. This for 5 years, all the governors will sit up. Everyone now knows that I have to create wealth in local. That's one. So anything FARC, federal character would go. That's number one. Number two, that I will recreate the Land Use Act. It has to be scrapped or it has to be reformed. To say that land now becomes an asset, which means that the villagers in my village can take that land, the governor or the local government guy can give them title, they can go to a bank and get a loan using that title. You instantly convert about 9 trillion, what we call dead capital, to now assets that I can go to the bank and borrow money from, because the guys in my village suddenly don't have an asset, they've got land. They go to a bank and say, we have this land as collateral, give us a loan. The land is there. They can get a 30-year loan on that land. They take that loan, they can buy a tractor or fertilizer, they can farm, and year in, year out, they pay back the loan to the bank using the land as collateral. Right now in Nigeria, you cannot easily create equitable mortgages because the governor has to sign that transfer of title. If you take away Land Use Act, you've taken away that requirement. So you've unlocked the economy with land, with equitable credits, and it can then grow. So that's two. The third one is all these rules around the exclusive list. You scrap it. If a state wants to do railways, let them do. If a region wants to do railways or airports, let them do. Whatever the state or regions want to do is their money. You give them their FAC in dollars that it is in. You don't tell the federal, doesn't tell the state or local government what to do. Local governments retain revenues, state retains revenues, federal retains revenues. You don't do all that. Let's share money. That goes away. That's three rules. So number one is FAC goes. Number two, Land Use Act goes. Number three, exclusive list goes. Apart from things like the army, commerce, legal, that you have to have a federation running it. All those other small ones, road safety, that should be statewide. That basically works. The fourth one I'll do, fourth one is you democratize credit. Banks should not be the only institutions issuing credit. If an insurance company wants to issue a loan, let them issue. If a company wants to receive deposits and issue credits, let them do it. Let the CBN focus on banks. Let other guys focus. Create competition with the creation of credit. You drive down the cost of credit. If you have post office banks today, that's going to be a very, very cheap way of getting funds. People can go and borrow 10K from their post office and pay back. You don't need $1 million, don't need collateral. You live on the street, they know you. 4 laws, you pass those, you double the GDP in 2 years.
How about you? How would you take the question, bro?
Yeah, so Carlos said most of the key spots, but I think I'll go a bit differently. So I'm a nationalist by default, so I'm a strong supporter of One Nigeria. I'll definitely delete state of origin. State of residence should be applicable. I will also look at on why states are not investing in basic education. The fact that 18 million kids are not in school it's a nuclear bomb in the making, And I think we should also take the fact that our political system is inefficient. The National Assembly takes more than the market valuation of a bank like Fidelity. So it tells you that the laws that have been out in the last 2 decades have not even shown possibility to economic growth, despite the fact that we should look at things from a profitability basis. Secondly, I think another problem in Nigeria is accountability. The level of accountability across the federation is almost negligible. So you have to create those incentives. You have the INARA, you have automated systems, how finances are being shared. We have certificate of deposit. Why must everything be in cash? Transaction can be tracked. That will definitely give the INARA some strength. In addition to what Carlos said, the last part, which is a bit tricky, is that I would discourage the Nigerian custom as being a trade generating generating system, and that's because revenue generating system, and that's because the objective of customs in ID market is facilitation. If you look at the US, for example, the biggest trade partners are countries that they have free trade paths: Mexico, Canada. In the case of Nigeria, we've created monsters around our trade systems. You see rice cabal. That's why the border what can be saying will never come to pass. Not because you could see that even the president's executive order has not been obeyed. So these are issues we need to really address. We need to look at systems that will support trade, that will support the economy. Then, you throw in cultural programs. I looked at history: Churchill, Hitler, Ronald Reagan. They moved people by talking, despite the fact that the words actions speak louder than words. But you see, we need people, we need thinkers, we need the founding father from look at even Ahmadu Bello, Nnamdi Azikiwe. They were good orators. They knew how to move. They understood the cultural dynamic nature. These elites, many of them, they go to school. Even the fact that some of them go to high school, we don't understand whether it's the winter or the incubation periods in those markets that has really made them focus on just material wealth. It's not transiting to economic prosperity for their region. So we really need to go back to the very border. Education is not just about passing exam. Education is about creating impact of the society. So until we have that cultural institution where people don't just focus on being successful by buying a new Mercedes Benz, but creating community impact to your society, drinkable water, good education, high level of security, and wealth without enterprise is being discouraged, because that is another pandemic growing in the country. Then all the things that you said and in this addition I had would just be sound of music.
I appreciate that.
All right, yeah.
From my standpoint, I just feel like the current trajectory not only is not sustainable, but a lot of the things. I mean, Carlo. I think if the brass that's in leadership right now would just kind of comb through your post line, they would have a good platform for success. But I think the reality is that there's not real interest in forward progress in some of those fundamental things. I mean, you guys have pointed out, so many great points, and even some of the other speakers as well. But even like myself, as somebody who I believe in Nigeria, but I'm also a proponent of the best way is the way that works. And I think that, again, this is my personal opinion. Not everybody, I'm sure people don't agree, but I think that if you have an agnostic leadership, someone who does not have any religious affiliation to any one of those, any religion, and someone who's a little agnostic when it comes to tribalism, that's the way forward. With Nigeria split into either 2 or 3 different countries. Let's stop right there.
So, the last point, I move on. Before the elections, 20 hours, we had lots of space, and I said on Twitter and on space that Nigeria has very, very simple problems. Very, very simple. All the stuff you see, like foreign exchange, inflation, can be solved in 90 days. I posted it, 90 days. People said, it's impossible. 90 days. And I'm being 90 days, I want to look educated. It can be solved in a week. Exchange rate, inflation, that's for it to come down. It's not impossible to do. The problem Nigeria has with the current president is that because he has such a low margin when he won, he has to sort of listen to people that he shouldn't listen to. When the president removed the subsidy on PMS and also floated the naira, those were the good policies to do. It's very painful, those policies, but Nigeria is broke. He couldn't afford to pay them. If he had continued with those policies and Dangote Refinery came in and it was a planned handover to say, okay, now Dangote has come in, NNPC, give Dangote all your crude oil. By today, would have been seeing the effects of those reforms that he had done. Would have been seeing the effect. People would have said, in the next year, dollar will be 1,000. That's what you'll be hearing. But because he backed down and he said, okay, we're going to stop the subsidy, but we're still going to pay it. And we're going to float the naira, but we're still going to support the naira by giving BDCs 10,000. So the picture is scattered. Scattered. And that's his problem. He knows what to do. He's not a stupid guy. He's been an accountant. He's run Lagos State. He understands global economics. He knows, he has the advisors. He knows that to grow an economy is bottom up. Education, infrastructure. But again, he's pulled by this issue of taking all the cash he has and doing Coastal Road, which is going to be from Lagos to, and I put it on Twitter, it's going to stop in Lagos. That's where it's going to stop. Oh, you are being pessimistic. No, because to go outside Lagos, you're not entering the swamps. So you need a dedicated, specialized construction company that's going to build almost 50 bridges to go from Lagos to Calabar. It has nothing to do with pessimism. A coastal road is swamps.
Yep. But the president is also not a frugal president. Look at the spending on luxury, for example.
I get it.
You are selling reforms. I get what you're saying. But you're selling reforms. You are buying a new 100 million for the country.
I get
there are
it.
actually many countries that don't even use a jet of 100 million.
He can do this stuff and still, he can be a spendthrift and still get away with it. If this $1 trillion he gave for the coastal road, I bet you if that guy had called 20, Julius Berger, Datan Sui, all the known construction companies and told them, okay, I want you guys to go to all the geopolitical zones and fix all the current roads so that in the next 24 months, I don't see a pothole on an existing express road. We would have felt the effect today. Food would have come down in price. Inflation would have come because food would have get to Lagos faster. You do things that are quick and are fast. I told him before he came into office, you don't have time. People have suffered. You are coming in, whether people like you or not. Everyone will look towards you for direction and guidance. You don't have time. You've got to hit the road, the street running, and then deliver results. What has he delivered? We've done the independence speech. You heard his speech. They were struggling. That's why they're quoting all these 30 billion here, 30 billion here, because they don't have anything concrete they can tell you and say, this is what we have done. In 24 months, with all the money that he has spent, he should be able to say, the road from Lagos to Kano, that's going to bring all the rice or kebi, we have fixed that road. The railway from Lagos, the star railway from Lagos to Kano, we have done it. So, these tangible things. That's what you should have focused on.
Yeah, but these things cannot happen because the president is more. I don't know. I don't know the word to use. Look, Wiki will not have happened under Obasanjo. Look at how Wiki has held Rivers State hostage. Rivers State is an integral part of the Nigerian economy. A lot of people have forgotten that Rivers, after Lagos, Rivers is one of the states that have the highest IGR. So if a state like Rivers is dysfunctional, if a state like Kogi, for example, is bringing in inflation of close to 40%, despite the fact that they have substantial amount of variable, and the excuse is about flooding. With climate change coming in years to come, you could see how
they are too focused. Olumide, they are too focused on elections in 2 years' time. Let me now come to the U.S. elections. Let's come to U.S. elections. If Donald Trump wins and becomes the U.S. president, you know what's going to happen? They're going to start to do fracking. They're going to start to do exports of crude oil. What do you think will happen? They're going to go to India and offer India cheaper crude oil from the US. They're going to go to South Korea. They're going to go to Europe. Who offers those countries crude oil today? Nigeria. So Donald Trump is not going to ban oil and gas, but they will knock us out of the market because we are a spot player. We have no super tankers that can go and park in Europe and supply swing oil. So Nigerians oil and oil especially is going to be on the downtrodden if Donald Trump wins. It's not better if Kamala Harris wins. If Kamala Harris wins, they're going to sue NNPC in New York for lying to the world about emissions. They don't need to win. They need to simply tie down NNPC. So NNPC will stop producing crude oil. They've done it to the Americans already. They have a green target. To the Democrats in America, even natural gas is dirty. Go to the state of Washington. They are banning natural gas. So NNPC, Nigerian Natural Gas, are targets under a Kamala Harris administration. Now, if this happens, remember that the reason why we're talking about crude oil today is because of Ukraine war. If Ukraine and Russia make peace, that means that the price of oil will come down by at least $10. It's already coming down, if not for the cuts of Saudi and Russia. What will happen to the Nigerian budget if oil comes down $20 from 80 today to about, say, 60? Our deficit is going to blow up, which means we're going to borrow more, which means inflation, important inflation, because we know wouldn't happen. Are we thinking about this? Are we looking about the US elections? Are we just saying, oh, River State, oh, this one? There are real issues that Nigeria is going to face. Dark clouds await us. You need a president that has a cabinet that can say, how do we navigate these issues? How do we pay for food? How do we ensure that we can get revenues from our assets in Nigeria? That's what we need to be talking about today, not the type of soup on the pot on Twitter. So we don't have a government today that is looking at those long-term plans and saying, what can we do? As we speak today on this space, Nigeria has no long-term economic plan. I challenge you, show me the name of the plan. We have ASAP, which is an intervention plan because of the issue that we're seeing from the protest. That's an intervention. We don't have any Nigerian industrial plan like Gowon had. We don't have any 2020 by 20 plan like Obasanjo had. We don't have all those. How can a nation that was once a $500 billion nation that wants to get to $1 trillion in 10 years not have an economic plan? Is it because we don't have smart people in government? No. So why do we not have an economic plan? If you post this question on Twitter, you hear, go back to Nambra. That's what you hear. But it's the same Nigeria we are in. We are raising these issues. And no one's interested because we want to win elections in 2 years. It will come back to everybody. Let's take I am Ajua. You've got the floor, sir. Go ahead. I am Ajua. Speaker, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Let's get JAB. JAB, thanks for keeping your hand up there. JAB, Jab. Go ahead. Jab, you've got the floor. Please go ahead. JAB. JAB, yeah, go for it.
Good evening, everyone. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, what kind of faint? Can you speak up or something like that?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Nice conversation, and thank you, Mr. Kalu. So I'll just make it as brief as possible. The good, the bad, and the hopeful. So for the good, I would say in the past, it was a little bit better. I attended a public primary school which was free, public secondary school which was free. I attended a public university as well, where I paid just 25,000 all through my phone. Since then, and I know that a lot of Nigerians actually benefited from that kind of quality education that we had in the past. You cannot compare the quality of education that we have now to what we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. Yes, even 15, 20 years ago was not so good, but it was still very, very okay, unlike what we have now. So that is the good from the past. So the bad we have now is that everybody is out for themselves. I do not really agree that we really have bad leadership. We also have bad followership. I will even say that even every single Nigeria has, it's just unopportune to be a bad leader. That's just a simple fact. The leaders that have been there for a while, these are the old people that are leading this country. They've been able to create, loopholes that they and their families are benefiting from policies that the government have made over time. Now we have new, younger politicians coming in, trying to throw out the old ones, but the old ones are not agreeing with them. So the new ones too are also creating their own loopholes to make sure that their current state and their future state is secured, all at the expense of the country that we call Nigeria. So every other person that is even looking for political office these days, to me, just look like someone that is just going there to go and secure his maybe family inheritance or something. What I believe that we can do going forward, okay, let me say the hopeful part. The future, currently now, I do not think there is any hope for Nigeria. Because looking at the whole situation around the country, our revenue, our expenditure, the way the fiscal side is behaving compared to the way the monetary side is behaving, the behavior of the two systems does not even show that they are in the same government. That's how it looks to me. It doesn't show that they are in the same government. And looking at the future, I think the noise around crude oil refinery should die down a little bit. It's just too much noise. Crude oil, I'm not sure in the next 10 years will go as high as maybe $140 per barrel anymore. There is high tendency that the crude oil price will continue to come down. Maybe if it goes back to maybe like 95 or 90, it will still come back down. Why don't we focus on things that are more important for the future? What we need to do for crude oil now is just to ensure that we increase our daily production to about maybe 2 million, 2.5 million. While we, handle the Dangote issue, let Dangote. Yes, there's no way you want to, fight Dangote when he has that kind of capacity of refinery. Everybody has their own interest. Let him win. I don't care. Just supply us petrol. Let the supply be there. Put a reasonable subsidy on it and let the government focus on infrastructure and manufacturing. It is very, very simple. Focus on infrastructure and manufacturing. There are a lot of youths today that are very jobless. Yes, I know tech is already taking shape. A lot of people are getting all the tech skills, but tech is not going to take everybody. It is not going to take everybody. It is not going to take the person that dropped out of secondary school or did not even finish secondary school. But in the manufacturing sector, the factories will take them. They can get something to take home to their family. These are the things that the government is supposed to be looking at. Yes, create an enabling environment for business to thrive. Now, all the companies in the manufacturing sector, we've seen their reports over 2 years since the parts of the exchange. We've seen their reports. Most of them are even struggling to keep their employees because of the effect of the effects on their operation. So, do something to encourage them, increase the manufacturing sector, their capability in the country. I think if we can do that, increase infrastructure as well, there might be a little bit of hope. But currently, I do not see any hope. Thank you very much.
Very sustained. You see no hope. Pain me, I'm pained, but that's your opinion. I get where you're coming from. I am a Junwa. You got the floor. Thanks, JAB. Appreciate you saying that. Go ahead. I am a Junwa. Second time I'm calling. Baba Charlie, what's up? Baba Charlie, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Saja.
How you doing, sir?
Everyone at the call, good evening. Very well. Thanks so much for organizing this meet. Well, man, Emily White, I'm in space. Good evening, sir.
Please wait for your turn, Mr. Kinde. Go ahead, Charlie. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if to call it pessimism, but it's almost like a consensus that Nigerians, we think that our country is not going to make it. And I find that very scary.
Do you notice that there are younger people saying that? The younger people are saying Nigeria from the first guy. This guy that came on I think I've forgotten his name. Do you notice that younger people have no hope?
Yes, because I'm a young person myself, but I guess it's the experience. They do not have any experience of better times, so it doesn't. And the last election, I think from 2020, from NSAS situation, because I remember that in 2020 I was lecturing at a private university, and I remember my students and the mood. They were very excited about what was happening, because it was, for them, that's the first time that they saw what looked like, young people are trying to do something about the country. So they were excited, and they really did think that something good was going to change with the way the build up to 20th of October. But after 20th of October, it was like that was just crashed. And then they now were able to connect with the story that they probably have heard about prior generations' attempts. And they now probably began to understand better why the older generations seem to be so docile. Because, of course, 2020 October wasn't the first time people tried to do something. Recently, I think it's a Netflix movie is coming out of some young people that tried to hijack a plane in 1993, thereabouts. So people have tried things in this country. Even the military coup series themselves were efforts to get things in the right direction. And every military coup simply made the country worse. And then the next one makes it even worse than the previous one. And all of that. And then 20th of October. But more significantly, I think Peter will be on 2023, 23, his message and everything he did, the campaign, the movement, probably was the peak of what looked like a collective effort to a large extent to get Nigeria in the right direction. Even from the economic side of things, today, when I look at Nigeria today, I see so many things happening, and I tell people around me that Peter Obi started this whole thing. When people talk about VDM, very dark man, because even before Peter Obi, before the election, in fact, I think it's still on my Twitter here. I put it out there that he might not win or lose, but what he's going to do is he's going to shift the orientation of a lot of Nigerians, and he's done exactly that. Because now people are very confident to call out things that usually nobody calls out really. And so we have, even in Christianity now, people are now calling out religious leaders, and then they are now apologizing. These are things that have happened for decades, and everybody felt it was normal. And now, suddenly, there's a shake-up everywhere. So, yes, people are disappointed. The hope seemed to be crashed by the outcome of this last election, the NSAS and all those kinds of things. Now it's even more difficult for people to protest. Anybody talking about protest right now, it's like, guy, we are just wasting our time, But at the same time, I think something is shifting at a more base level, at a more fundamental level, which is the recognition of what is right. Because I think until very recently, it's like Nigerians, we have completely given up challenging the status quo in itself. The fact that our efforts to challenge the status quo now doesn't seem to be making much effort or much headway. It does not really necessarily reflect what is going on, in the background. It's like when you plant, there are some trees, there are some seeds that you plant, they sprout in 3 days, but there are some seeds that you plant and they take years. They literally take years before you see anything above the ground. But then they are building a very deep root. So I think that when it comes to the question of the good, the bad, and the hopeful, the good thing about Nigeria is, is the mass, the population, Nigeria is the capital of the black race. It doesn't, whatever we do, whether we are working or we are not working, whether it's a field project, it's not a field project, if you look carefully, you realize that even in its failure as a project, it remains the capital of the black race. And it's very hard to imagine that will not continue to be the case. So that is why you see us dominate in Afrobeats, we dominate in football, we dominate in so many things that individuals are able to do for themselves outside of government. Once it has to do with what people are doing for themselves outside of government, we kind of always dominate. And of course, there was a time when we also dominated in the national, in foreign relations space within Africa, as mentioned earlier by Kalwaja and others. We know what happened in South Africa and the role Nigeria played and all of that. So there was such a time which you can call good times from the perspective of foreign relations from Nigeria. Sometimes it could look like we did too much during those periods. We probably did not have our priorities right, because if you look at the figures of what we spent in other countries, we had issues at home, but well, that happened. So, but yeah, that would be called good times. There's a caveat on the good times for Nigeria. The older generations, we had a time when you go to school, you went for free education, and during the undergraduate years, you had free meals. You had when I say free meals, they were very rich meals. People had they had full chicken, as a free meal.
Charlie, let me ask you a question. I heard you say sports and music. Nigeria is ahead, really? So are we ahead in, say, football in Africa? Is Nigeria ahead? What sports are we ahead?
I said when it comes to what individuals can do. Last year, the African Footballer of the Year was Victor Osimhen. This year, everybody agrees it should be Ademola Lookman. Any given year, if you look at the literal performance of footballers from Africa, whether they win the Nations Cup or they don't have country, or whether they win the African Footballer of the Year award or not, we always need, at least in football, in terms of individual performances of African players in Europe. Like you can just look at football clubs and everywhere. It's just like Afrobeats also. Nollywood. If you go to like black communities in America, Cuba, all those Caribbean communities where you have strong black presence, you find that their culture, Nigeria kind of dictates what the black people, what you can call the black culture globally. It's very, very strongly.
I understand. I got you now. Yeah.
Yes, it's very strongly. So it's almost a spiritual thing when I say Nigeria is the black capital of the world, and it kind of is always so, regardless of how we are doing economically. There's that thing where this is, and they are waiting for us. And that is why Peter Obi was not just a Nigerian superstar during that election period and all. It was almost like the whole world was waiting for Peter Obi. The black community thought finally, because the black community all over the world is waiting for Nigeria. The black Americans who are getting police brutality, problems and all, what they need is a black African country that can be respected globally. That will
okay, I hear you, Papa. I'm gonna move. Papa, I hear you, but I gotta return to. But just personally, the black guys don't really like Nigerians particularly. They like Africans, but Nigerians they actually don't tell you, are you West Nigerian?
I'm not talking about what they like or not as individuals. I'm talking about foreign relations.
Okay, makes sense.
The way the police in America will handle a black Chinese or a black, Chinese American or American or whatever, it's not the way they handle an African American. And it's because there's nobody to speak for them on the continent. There is no African that will say, you know what, we break trade ties with America because of what they're doing to black Americans.
All right.
We block trade ties. Then America would be impacted.
I hear you. Charlie,
so that is the space that Nigeria occupies.
Okay.
In form of potential, right? That is
Charlie. We gotta move on. I hear you. Come there. I gotta move on. Yeah.
We are not trying to do this. But before I leave, Carlos, I think there's this series of documentary called "The Men Who Built America," the Vanderbilts of this world, the Rockefellers. There were specific individuals who, when you look
Baba, we gotta go. I want you to land this plane. I gotta move on.
We need people to do that in this country. Dangote seems to be in that position. We need more of that, and I think that is where the hopeful part can come from. Let me leave it there. As you said, thank you.
All right, I got Ake. Hey, Baba, thanks. Everything said was fantastic. Let me get Ake in here. Ake, what's up? Do you agree? Where we in Nigeria? I mean, what's that perspective?
Oh man, bro! Listen, this conversation for me is probably the only thing I care about on the TL nowadays. So I wrote a tweet about 2 days ago, and I got a lot of reactions. I even had people call me from the blue, talking about the fact that perhaps I may have been promoting some kind of apathy, or maybe I'm discouraging a generation of young Nigerians. And what I did, so my dad is an economist, right? And we have these conversations. We talk about, where we are as a nation, what each generation has done, from the 60s to the 70s, to, talk about the oil boom and, sort of the progress we saw, but then the declination of, Nigeria standing, given the military junta that we had to suffer through, 2-3 decades. And, now the era of democracy, 1990 to 2024. And if you look at 25 years of Nigeria in a democratic dispensation, you take a pen and paper. If you're about to start a family, you want to get married, you want to write, you want to project where you're going to find yourself in 5 to 7 years, it will scare you what the numbers will look like or what the prospects are. If you're outside the shores of Nigeria, perhaps, things may be crystal clear. I can really see where you're driving. So what I did, I now looked at 1995 to 2005, and I said, let me take a 10-year block of the generation and see where that generation would stack up to someone like me who came out of the early 80s and left Nigeria at the age of 18. And I said, let me pair myself with a young person. I went through about 25 to 26 different items. My younger sister was born in 1995, so she's a prime example of someone I called the demography or age group. And I said to myself, this is really bad. And the reason why I focus on that generation is because 19 to 30 will probably make a bulk of the what I call youthful population. So when you talk of human capital, you talk about your workforce, you talk about your ability to compete in 21st century technology, manufacturing, creative, industry. That's a generation that sparks a lot of ingenuity, that that breeds innovation and allows you to compete on the national level. And I say this because if I see where Nigeria is today, if I take where India was in 2001, and you fast forward to 2021, over a window of 20 years, I saw that revolution where they emerged as the frontiers in the IT tech space. And that was a national strategy. If you look at what Singapore did in the 90s, you look at what China has done in the last 30 years, every nation has a national strategy. But look at Nigeria, we have nothing. Even where Nigerians on their own, by virtue of the fact that we're very industrious, we are very progressive, people, wake up every day and want to strive to make the best out of life. You have a system and a society that holds you back. And I'll give you one prime example. In the Buhari era, where cryptocurrency, blockchain, saw Nigeria becoming one of those, what I call regions. You stack Nigeria top 5, and we were doing things. You had a young population that was storing the value of their wealth in crypto trading. Yes, you can talk about the 419 fraudulent aspect of it, but it's not even up to 5%. Because I know every day oil and gas bankers, professors that were buying, crypto. And in one single swoop, they destroyed the ability for us to really pick steam and emerge. In 15, 20, 30 years, if blockchain crypto is how the world operates, Nigeria is going to lie again, where we would have been on the frontier. So I'm only saying this because when you talk about the good, the bad, and the hopeful, there are a lot of things to be hopeful for about this country. When you look at things that are good, everything is good about Nigeria. But when you now look for the outcomes, it's always only bad. And you ask yourself, what would it take to really demystify some of these things that have become stumble blocks and pitfalls that but it just comes down to leadership. And I'm not saying leadership because it's only people that are elected that are leaders, but from the banking industry to even how we operate as a society. I'll give you an example. Why can't the young speaker on this space, 22-year-old, wake up, have some type of remote work with a company in Austria or Canada, and they can pay him directly to his bank account without having to do a bank wire, where we are interconnected with all kinds of payroll apps, from PayPal to third-party payment solutions in a seamless fashion. No, Nigeria is screened off, blocked off from the rest of the world. I can't even wake up in Nigeria and send $10 from Western Union to a school in Arkansas to apply for a community college program. Or I want to take an online course and I say, okay, hey, I want to pay with Western Union. Or if I'm going to take my Zenny card, like the Naira-based card, and pay $4,000 for school fees. There are just many things we cannot do as Nigerians. Because why? You have bureaucracy, you have red tape, they come up with all this anti-money laundering, SQML, EFCC, because, want to stop the outflow of, FX, from illegal gotten wealth or from corruption. But then the political class are the biggest corporates, but then you punish the average man on the street. What can't I do Western Union out of Nigeria? First question. So there's just so many things to untangle, and by the time you start digging into these conversations, you just start finding out that it's just madness. It's madness. But anyway, let me stop. I think probably have other speakers, but it's a lot to unpack because when you talk about, our economic story, 64 years, being stagnant, it's just mind-boggling. I cannot explain it. I can't explain it. It's madness. They want Tony. I've been to Elumelu into this space, and I gave him a microphone, and I asked him, why can't I, a young girl in Uromi or in Port Harcourt or in Abakaliki, transact with my Zenith Bank account? He will give you all kinds of nonsense reasons. But these people sit at the round table with CBN, with all the banking committees, and they only look out for policies and make sure that they get welfare, they get fatter, and they can rip up every single extra cover of profit without even looking at the interest of Nigeria. So, take, businesses like Flutterway or Paystack, or a lot of the new kids on the block. And you find these big banks, these are become stumble blocks with breaking down the terrain that these new entrants are coming to, making life easy for Nigerians. Because at the end of it, it's just greed, and more greed. But anyways, let me yield here.
Yeah, I think you mentioned maybe Tony as an example, right? It's a thing in particular, right? I mean, those guys are the largest innovation. Actually, you agree that's happened in Nigeria, say in the last 20 years of the Nigerian banking sector. If the other sectors in Nigeria have grown or have, should we say, invested in productivity gains with Nigerian banks have, we'll be somewhere. No, banks have their issues. But look at it. I grew up in Nigeria where you had to go to a bank and get a tally number, and go back in the afternoon to do your transaction with a checkbook. Not with checkbook, what they call those cash book. You write how much in the book. They will stamp it to the stamp. You withdraw your money. You have to go to the bank. You open the account. If you open the account in Ikeja, you have to go to Ikeja. You can't go to the same bank in Sekebi. No. But look at what we have today. Nigerian banks, some items Nigerian banks are really even at par with banks in the US. Your point is valid. There are a lot to be done. Why in Nigeria, why are we only the ones that they single out for? We can't use PayPal. Russians use PayPal before the sanctions, and they are almost as corrupt, or there's almost as much online fraud as Nigeria. So why us? Because no one is fighting for us, because we don't have anyone advocating for us at that high level. We've lost the respect. It's the same thing. When you lose respect at the global level, at the retail level, they will deal with you. If Nigeria sues PayPal and says, come and explain in court why you have stopped Nigerians from using PayPal, you don't have to win. Just sue them. Let the publicity go on that PayPal is stopping the largest nation in Africa from using. Let PayPal put the data they've used to remove Nigeria, but they allow Russia, they allow all other countries that do fraud, but remove Nigeria. Let them come and defend it in court. That's what you do. Sue them. Sue them in the court in America and bring.
So sorry to interrupt you, but your banks, right? The 900-pound gorillas have to stand tall and be represented in the room. Now, let me do a slight contrast, and I like how you said the fact that the banking industry has seen an advancement. True, but that would not happen if we did not have the rapid, sophistication that came around with the telecoms industry. So while I want to give bankers, this applause that they've caught up, they've made Nigeria, it's interesting. I always tell people, I have friends that own fintech products, right? Oh, we have this company, and they're like, the first thing they hear is, bankers will tell them, in Nigeria you can send a transfer of 5 million naira from one account to another account. Can you do that in America? Won't it take 24 hours to do one wire from another bank to another bank? And then I say, hey, hold up, pause. The reason why you have that kind of bragging right is because the scrutiny, the bureaucracy you need in the system has been removed in Nigeria because we have a system that enables corruption.
I can ask a bit unfair. I can the truth that
Let me land. I promise you. I knew you're going to push back, and I knew you're going to push back. Now, I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm just saying. So where I hear this argument that we are advanced, we are very sophisticated, I say, no, we are not sophisticated. We may have is like, mommy, I want to eat noodles for breakfast, and mommy says yes. Or mommy, can I have noodles for breakfast? Well, what did you have, for dinner? Is there, milk, or are there alternative options? Or, what's your health condition? Before I even say yes, eat noodles. I'm just saying, because we have these seamless transactions, and we take it and run to the, to the streets and say, we are progressive. Where on the other side, where countries that have these technologies will not just let you move $5 million from one account to another account, it's because they want to have the ability to audit. Right? So the reason why
it doesn't change the fact that the Nigerian banks have all that. We are all part of the global network. The KYC, all that stuff is same in Nigeria. But when these new guys came, the GTBs, the UBAs, the Access Bank Boys came, they took an industry that was a dinosaur and turned it to what it is today. Now you have UBA all across Africa, Access all across Africa, GT all across Africa, taking the Nigerian exports from Nigeria all across Africa, providing quality service all across the African
continent. Let me take you there. So UBA is all across Africa. Can you use your UBA account to send money to a UBA account in Ghana?
Yes.
Easy question.
Yes.
The same bank.
Yes.
Same bank. UBA to UBA.
Yes.
Not a forex account.
I use UBA I use UBA in America. I use my UBA card in America.
No, not card. I said, can you send money from a UBA account holder in Nigeria to a UBA account holder in Ghana?
Why not?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
You cannot.
Yeah, but why no, hold on. Why can't? No, but hold on. Why can't I send? Yeah, I know, but why can't I send it? That's the question. Why can't
I have to explain to you why you can't send it? So on the SWIFT, $100 transaction. If you look at the way banks were designed, particularly Nigerian banks, you see that it's quite locally the spread. We don't have that interlooping network, and I understand what I can say. But I think
so. I can send wire abroad. I can send wire.
Yes, you can. So, but that's not you don't understand what I'm saying. So let me explain what I'm saying for you. What I can say is, for example, we're not going through the SWIFT network. You want to send your money from your UBI account to your Ghanaian account. It's not possible, Kalu. It's not possible. I had a Ghanaian account in Nigerian bank. I don't want to mention, and I had the same in Nigeria. I couldn't. In fact, I had to take the money out of the system. I understand what he's saying, but what Aki has forgotten is that Nigerian banks, in terms of instant transfer, I use the two biggest European banks, and I use an American investment account. The transfers are not instant. European banks take 24 hours. Nigerian banks instant. So while you look at the technology advancement, you also need to understand that the issue facing Nigerian banks is not the banks itself. It's the compliance and the political problems around the country. So let me give you an example. Interactive Brokers is an American company. Now, this is one of the biggest investments. That's why when a lot of Nigerians ask me what investment apps are in, because I know a lot of Nigerians that don't travel and don't have other residency, it's difficult. Niger Republic can invest in Interactive Brokers. They are American and listed in the US stock market. Accept Niger Republic residents. They don't accept Nigerians. In fact, even if you have another passport, when you are filling areas, they ask you, do you have another nationality? You pick Nigeria. If you see the common trans you do at the end of the day. So the issue is, you see, the internet scams, the political, because these countries don't like to be, Americans don't play with their financial institutions, and Americans understand the cost of compliance. Any breach will cost. That's why many Nigerian banks refuse to open a branch in the US. The story UBA, if you look at it, and UBA was very smart about it, it's not really a branch in full perspective. If you understand representative, if you look at Zenith doesn't have an exposure in US. Zenith has in UK, it has in France. GT, no, it's not in US. It's not that they don't. But if you look at the compliance requirements opening running a US financial institution, Nigerian banks cannot afford it. So we really need to wake up on our, and that's why I said the really class, because see, the way we move money, we think the Americans don't know. They are aware. The way we move money from one point to another, careless. Look at the way FAC allocation is looking at. So you want a country like America that is very sensitive at which how funds are moved around market to open to a Nigerian market where politicians can even abuse the naira, and you expect them to kind of, it will not happen. So,
yeah, but Olumide, just to be clear, just to be clear, I can send a wire to Ghana, correct?
Yes, you can, but you cannot use